Beyond the Waves is a Hail Hail Media production. It may contain sweary words and adult situations may be discussed. If you're in the company of underage Tims, turn off the show now and listen back later. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, email us at beyondthewaves67@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at BTW Celtic Show, or check us out on Facebook and join our group at Beyond the Waves. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. Welcome to the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. My name is Graham Wilson, and today we are joined by the good Reverend himself. He's live in Chopper 67, hovering over central to northern New Jersey. Hail, hail, Rev.
Hi, Peter Lawwell.
We know you're listening. Rev, how are things looking in the friendly skies above the Garden State?
Right now, things are moving. That's all that matters. That's good.
Lovely, lovely. Wish the same metaphor could be said about the transfer window for Celtic just now, but unfortunately, we can't. It's a bit too little, too late. 2-2 today. We got a point out of today's tie, and to be honest with you, considering the start, I'll certainly take the point. Obviously, I'm never satisfied playing a home tie in the SPL and not getting full points for it, but considering the circumstances just now with a huge game, the magnitude of the game on Wednesday can't be accurately described in words. I mean, we are on the cusp of perhaps keeping this era going, or unfortunately seeing it cascade away. So its importance and magnitude are just absolutely mind-blowing, and the fact that we have done precious little after getting the spine ripped out of our team is tantamount to malpractice, and that's not hyperbole, that's not reaching things, and that's not me being dramatic as I typically am. It's just the reality, and we saw examples of that today, as well as the midweek unfortunate Champions League qualifier against Shakhtar Cotton Candy. There were several failings, not just coming down to the lack of signings, although that was obviously setting the framework for it, but some major failings on the part of manager Neil Lennon and some players that, quite frankly, just disgrace the shirt. There's no other way to describe what took place and went down, and obviously you can make the case that those players were put in bad positions, and I would certainly use that rationale in defense. But at the end of the day, these are professional footballers, and these are professional footballers who claim that they are Celtic through and through, and that they would live and die for the club and the supporters and everything else, and they just absolutely chucked it under no alternative explanation. They chucked it, and we are in a perilous state right now with regard to the Champions League and qualifying for it. There are so many things that are dependent on our qualification for the Champions League, and that's what is so mind-blowing, that we could go in to these qualifiers with an arm tied behind our back. And I don't think that I'm overreaching by saying that it will be the end of an era if we get tossed out of the group stages. No question about it. And the shocking thing in all of it is, we've gone through decades of coming up against the SFA, the establishment, the Huns, the referees, everything else in holding us back. And the most frustrating, disappointing, maddening thing about this situation is the fact that it's self-inflicted. I think we just lost the Rev. Hopefully we can get him back. I know that hovering over in Chopper 67 sometimes can be a bit unpredictable, but we hope to get him back soon. Up there he is. Lovely. Let's get the Rev. Rev, are you encountering a bit of turbulence in Chopper 67, are you?
A little bit. Kind of got knocked around for a second there.
Oh, lovely. Well, kind of sounds like Amito Balde's day. Let's get right into breaking down this 2-2 game 2-2 result against Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Obviously, knowing coming into this game, Cali was top of the league. They still are, to my knowledge. We know that they're going to come out and they're going to see an opportunity, for all the reasons that I described. We're bereft with injuries just now. We've done precious little to reinforce the losses that we've had in addition to the injuries. So we're dealing with a skeleton crew, and a skeleton crew that's really being sort of nurtured and coddled for Wednesday. We don't want to pick up any knocks to the key players that we're going to need. So Inverness, seeing the opportunity, they came out and a brilliant strike early doors in the game. Really not much that could have been done with it. You got to take your hat off to the Inverness player. Put us 1-0 down early on, and that's obviously going to be worrying, especially in light of the fact that we don't have much teeth going forward. We don't have that striker that's going to put the ball in the back of the net, which is, in my opinion, what a striker is there to do. Obviously, we have a load of strikers just now that fulfill some other role, which is not putting the ball in the back of the net. But if we don't have that, we're going to find it much, much more difficult to win games. But it seemed as though the first half was maybe the players were a bit confused, but certainly lethargic. I don't know if maybe they're having jet lag in reverse. They're being bounced all over the place. Maybe that luxury plane wasn't as luxurious as we thought going back and forth to Kazakhstan. But it seemed as though halftime, it gave Neil Lennon the opportunity to reinforce the troops, to get everything refocused. He showered praise all over Scott Brown, although I thought that for large stretches of the game, he was anonymous. He was just as culpable for a lot of the maladies in the first half. We found ourselves 2-0 down, and that's an absolutely dire, bleak position to be in. And I was reassured by a couple of things. Number one, obviously in the second half, we controlled the ball throughout. We did find ourselves exposed in a couple of situations where Inverness got the ball on the break, on the counterattack. And it comes down to the fact that we don't have anybody up top that can make the ball stick. When we're trying to throw those through balls through, Amito Balde's first touch let him down in several occasions. We don't have a partnership of Stokes and Hooper up there that can work off of each other, the 1-2s. The switching of the ball from right to left, far too slow, allowing Inverness loads of time to reset and to deal with it. And that's worrying for me, especially in light of the fact that James Forrest is going to be out indefinitely now with sciatica. I mean, we are seriously lacking, not just in terms of a poacher, somebody that can clean up, but also the creative players. We played with essentially 4 central midfielders across the middle of the park. Once again, Charlie Mulgrew in midfield. But what was interesting, what I think really turned this game on its head, and it came down to Neil Lennon. We saw Moyakolo get up, start warming up, and it's like, you've got to be kidding me with this. Like, he's going to make a like-for-like change with Moyakolo when we're a goal down. We need to turn the game on its head. We have absolutely no bite. And it was like it was saved right at the last second. We saw Lustig come up, and it's like, great, a double substitution, and then that's it. So we're going to sub on 2 defenders when we are desperate to get a goal back, to salvage a point. But absolute stroke of genius from Neil Lennon, bringing on Michael Lustig, realizing that we don't have that penetrating player down the flanks. in the midfield. Ledley's not going to fulfill that role. Scott Brown obviously is not. Rojic, it seems, he's coming back from injury, trying to find his composure, find his feet, and his match sharpness and focus. Putting Matthews up there gives us an additional danger man, essentially, to give that wide outlet and to stretch the Inverness defense, and that's exactly what he did. Absolute magic on the goal that he really created and made happen single-handedly, and that's what Adam Matthews gives you. He gives you a great deal of technical ability on the right-hand side, in addition to a bit of pace, which is always going to be handy, especially coming up into the SPL. And that, for me, was incredibly reassuring. Neil Lennon's come under fire, and quite rightfully so, over the past several weeks for some, just head scratchers of substitutions, of policies, and even lack thereof in certain circumstances, going back to Wednesday. But that substitution right there turned the game on its head. It was very reassuring for me. Now, I pointed out the fact that Amito Balde, once again, the microscope is going to be on him, not just because he's a new signing. Of course, that's going to be the case. We're just desperate for somebody to be able to pick up the slack that Gary Hooper left. But also, in the games that he's played, he's come up well short, and that's going to weigh on him. He's got all sorts of culture shock and trying to adapt to Scotland and everything to that effect. But we are seeing some progress with him. Once again, we saw a couple of situations where, with the ball at his feet, he navigates through traffic quite well for a player of his size. I'm not quite convinced that he could be the target man that's going to be able to control the ball through the air. I'm not so sure that he has quite the depth of ability in the air, especially with service into the box. But we're seeing progress with him, and I'm encouraged by seeing that. Rev, what are your thoughts? Are you happy with just coming out of this with a 2-2?
Given how the game started, yeah, definitely. I agree exactly. Putting on Cola, that would have been, just what's the point? Why even make a substitution? Okay, you're refreshing a defender. We didn't need any help really in that department, but switching, putting in Lustig, pushing Adam Matthews up. It looks like we were kind of doing, switching back and forth between like a 4-4-2 and a 3-5-2, and it obviously worked well enough. Obviously could have been better, but yeah, having Matthews come up, I like him as a defender. He's got the speed to track back and steal a ball from an attacker. He doesn't really have the size too much to push him off the ball, but he can fulfill that role. But he does, especially for a defender, he's pretty good attacking. And in a jam like this, that's something definitely that we need, and worked out well today. I know we were saving players for Wednesday, but like Stokes. Why was he, he didn't get used in the last game. Is he really going to be used, in the return leg on Wednesday? Like, why was he being saved? We could have put, I think we could have had him come on, or, maybe not even to start, but as a sub. For how the game started and, with the lineup, with the first, 30 minutes of the game, I'll take the point, but it really shouldn't have come down to that. Definitely not at home.
Couple of interesting points from Neil Lennon after the game today. First off, he was very critical of the side, which, in the past, it's been confusing to myself and to many folks as to how he can be so complimentary of, quite frankly, ordinary-looking Celtic sides. When we come off of a disappointing result or when we drop points. This game, he was very critical and very direct, which, to a certain extent, I like. I want to see some urgency out there. I don't want it just to be Scott Brown running around, trying to get people focused and get people energized. But, to a certain extent, he also called out some players and using the terms of, there are players that want to get into this side who aren't showing me things. The player that really stands out, who is going to definitely be on the end of that, who I think it was intended for, amongst others, was Tony Watt. And once again, we see, Tony Watt coming in. When people see his name on the starting 11, that breeds a bit of excitement. Obviously, looking back to the Barcelona game last season, and he's had some moments of magic elsewhere as well, but it's just stop-start for him. He doesn't get the run of games in a consistent way. Furthermore, his utility and his instinct has been to sort of migrate and drift left, similar to Anthony Stokes, as you described, where that's the type of player that we want inside the box. When we're building up, especially down the flanks, Izzy or Adam Matthews are giving us the width, and there's a ball into the box, and there's only one player. That's so frustrating. And Tony Watt is drifting out left. I don't know if that's being coached into him or if that's just his sort of comfort zone or level or whatever. But another game where, for me, he was far too anonymous. It seems as though he's not picking up the game well enough. Maybe it's down to the formation or whoever knows. But another player that I could see that falling at the feet of, no pun intended, is Tam Rojic, and I think that's a bit unfair. It's a player that's coming back from an ligament injuries in his ankle, which is certainly never going to be a pleasant experience and not a quick recovery time. Let's be honest. But it's a player that came in January, and we've seen this with Michael Lustig. He comes in January, finds it a bit difficult to get better than with the team, but once the regular season past that takes hold and he has an opportunity to get his rhythm, get his feet, they start to develop a bit. Let's also remember Watt and Rojic, they're young players,
right.
and it's sometimes, I think that it's just the arm around the shoulder and the bit of additional encouragement that might, bring them along. I'd like for Fire and Brimstone to go towards players like Georgios Samaras and Charlie Mulgrew when they come up well short, but they seem to be Lennon's favorites. Rev, what do you make of this? I mean, there was a lot of criticism going towards Neil Lennon from this midweek game that Neil Lennon has a blind spot for certain players. It's his favorites, and he just throws them out there every single time. I fall into that category. What do you make of this? I mean, what needs to happen in order for Lennon to start being a bit more pliable? I think, one of the other comments that Lennon made after the game today was that Virgil van Dijk might have a bit of a muscle strain. It seems as though Kyle has a groin strain, and who knows when he's going to be back. I mean, I think this might be the injury that sends him off into the abyss. But with a less than fit Van Dijk, we saw Charlie Mulgrew slide back and play quite well, next to Van Dijk and Ambrose to a certain extent. Might this be the opportunity? Might this be the situation where Neil Lennon can hold his hand up and say, right, Charlie Mulgrew, best suited at center back. I understand why he wants to have him on there for dead balls and set pieces, which are going to be absolutely vital in Champions League games. But let's put him where he's suited best. Your thoughts there? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's good that, yes, Charlie Mulgrew can play a couple different positions. Hello? You got me?
Gotcha.
Hello? Okay. It's good that Charlie Mulgrew can play a couple different positions. It's good that Joe Ledley can play, a couple different positions, but they should be where they're suited, playing the position that they're suited for best, that they always excel in, or almost always excel in, and for Charlie Mulgrew, that's, at center back. If, one time in a game, we need him to move over to left back or maybe move him up late in the game, to mid, whatever. But, if you're going to have him in the starting 11, his position starting should be at center back. There just should be no question about that. And if this is what it takes where, he has to, in the middle of the game, pop back to his proper position, what we all think his proper position is, and then that's the evidence that Neil Lennon needs, then, okay, then this is a learning game in that sense.
Now, Rev, we also saw the return of the Green Brigade today. Obviously, a tumultuous month of August for lots of different reasons, and made none of the more simplified by the heavy-handed tactics from the board, in my opinion, kicking everybody out of 111. And now all of a sudden it's been reinstated, and all is forgiven all of a sudden after the result in Kazakhstan. What do you make of this whole debacle? There's some debate, discussion about, we get a bad result, and now all of a sudden the board's backtracking and the gamble backfired on them. What do you make of that? I'm
not too sold on that idea. I mean, it seemed as though a plan was in the works, before the game to have them back in 111 open. I don't, it's one of those, it might have had an effect, it might not have. I'm not too sure. I wasn't in the meeting room, obviously, so who knows, but I've given the benefit of the doubt that, something was already in the works for them to come back anyway.
Yeah, and I did have some dialogue and some information thrown my way before the tie that said that, things were progressing positively, and it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that they would be back, especially for this game. But, the timing of it is quite curious, and the board really do themselves no favors by basically setting all this sort of thing up. I mean, people talk about the gamble, is always the word that's thrown out there about, bringing in players for a particular price, whatever that price is. Everybody has their idea of what our business model states, what our price ceiling is, so on and so forth. We've already exceeded that if you use the past few years as a precedent and the guide. But we're seeing at this point that it's just as much of a gamble to do nothing at all. I mean, the case can be made that, well, we tried. Well, we've had months. Gary Hooper, it was rumored that he was going to be away in January. So clearly we knew that Gary Hooper, in all likelihood, would have been gone this summer. We had loads of time to line up all sorts of prospects, and we've fallen short. I mean, specifically with Van Bogason, his club in the Dutch league, FC Herringbone or whatever it's called. He's scoring goals for fun in the Dutch league. I mean, he would. Imagine what he could possibly do in the SPL, and furthermore, give him a stage on the grandest of scales in the Champions League. If you pay $5 million for him, which is the asking price from FC Herringbone, you can easily double that, within a few years. So I mean, that's just good business. In addition to bolstering the squad in an area that we're desperate for covering. We're now joined by MC all the way from the mean streets of Newry. MC.
Hi.
Hail, hail.
Hello.
Thank you so much for calling in. It's great to hear from you once again. We had loads of praise from your last call into the show, bringing all sorts of wisdom, and it's always good to hear from you and have some sense. So you want to vent a little bit. Let me open it up for you. What do you make of where we're at just now? I mean, I laid it out that if we don't have some sort of magic result, and obviously we know it's 3-0 or bust, or 4-1, which is in my opinion even taller order, considering we don't have any sort of goal scoring strikers. This could very well be the end of an era on several different levels. What do you make of where we're at now, and who's to blame?
Where we're at now, I think we're about 20 paces back from where we were with Mowbray. It's baffling. I understand we need a goal scorer. We need to bring someone in. But I'm more worried about the players that have played this past 2 seasons. They have taken a step backwards instead of going forwards. It's as if, we played Barcelona and we won against Barcelona. That's our career highlight. Don't really care what we do from now on. I don't know. It makes no sense to me that Ledley, who for me was probably our best player last season, has just been totally lost in our team this past 2 games. The one who dictated our midfield is now nowhere to be seen unless he's making a sideward pass. Izaguirre, well, his crosses, he can't even cross. I don't know what that's all about. It's just, to me, I think we've taken a lot of steps backwards, and it's going to take a lot to get us to where we were last season, and that to me makes no sense.
No, I would agree completely, and you touch on what I would think is an integral point for describing where we are just now. There's a lot of complacency in this side. Rev and I were just talking about Lennon's favorites, and he has blind spots for certain players. Let's not kid ourselves. Charlie Mulgrew playing each and every week. I understand his utility with dead ball situations, but playing Sammy up top by himself as a striker and then seeing the complete lack of effort that he had. Look, granted, I've been one of the biggest Sammy bashers in the past, and it seems as though since he's reinvented himself down that left-hand side, a lot of people have gotten on the bandwagon, myself included. But when he goes back into that center forward position, it's not even just like he's not best suited there. It's like he just chucks it, which to me is absolutely inexcusable. And for me, the 2 biggest culprits for Wednesday were, Tuesday were Neil Lennon and Georgios Samaras. The Georgios Samaras, you can defend him by saying, he's not a center forward, he's not best suited there. You can see that he was just sort of down, and maybe he's carrying an injury. Well, if he's carrying an injury, it's up to Neil Lennon to recognize that he's not playing at 100%. It's holding the team back. No question about it. It was clear for everyone to see. Yet he doesn't make a substitution. He plays him for the full 90 minutes, even after he went down after passing a ball by that he easily, clearly could have put in the back of the net that would have put us in a completely different stratosphere in context of the Champions League. And 5 minutes later, Davy Provin's asking, why is he still on the park? It's baffling to me. When you have Anthony Stokes on the bench, who obviously is much better suited for that role, that's completely inexcusable. But for a player, and Sammy's not absolved of any sort of blame from this, because if you're going to come out as a player who loves Celtic and lives Celtic and just is all about the team and the supporters, I don't care if your foot's falling off. You bust it no matter what. If the manager tells you that you're playing at center forward, you don't just go off on a huff. And every time we build up, James Farce is running down the flank or Izagari, and you see countless times Georgios Samaras just walking back at the halfway line. Inexcusable. He needs to bust a gut until his foot falls off to get into that box and provide some support to get on the end of the ball and put the ball in the back of the net. This is the most important tie that we've had in years. And for me, that's inexcusable. Two people there. Neil Lennon for not pulling him off, but Samaras is a professional footballer, and if he wants to say he's a Celtic man, that performance and that effort from Tuesday night is inexcusable.
You, Graham for chairman. No, completely right. Although I think I would, instead of just blaming Samaras, I would blame the team as a whole. Although I did say from about 5 minutes into the game, you could see that Sammy was not going to have a great day on the pitch. You could see the head was down, he was walking at his own pace, he just was not connected to the game we were playing. You could see that within the first 5 minutes. So why did it take Lennon 90 minutes to figure that out? I don't get it.
Inexcusable. And MC, as I was watching and I said verbally, I was sitting by myself. I don't care. I talk to myself all the time, as odd as that is, or as hard as it is to believe. I'm sitting there watching the game with a Spanish feed. I don't even know what any of the commentators are saying, but 65 minutes in, I'm thinking, Lennon's playing for a 1-0. He's just trying to get through here with the 1-0 and take it back. And anytime that you have that mentality with that much time left in the game, you're leaving yourself exposed. You're leaving the team just completely on their heels. And even if you want to preserve a result, you still have to stay on the balls of your feet. And he failed.
Oh, he failed miserably. And I am a huge Lennon supporter. I thought this last couple of seasons he's shown himself as a great young manager.
Even though he's an Armagh man?
Even though he's an Armagh,
up, down.
Don't go there. Don't go there. I can't go into that. That's like going into a Celtic and Rangers thing. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm only teasing.
But anyway, I thought he was great with what he'd done with such little money, but then you watch that game and you watch today's game and you're sitting thinking to yourself, is he just happy at where he's at? Is he happy that we are a selling club and don't reinvest the money? Is he happy that, he gets this young team in and he builds them up and, EPL teams are watching us and going, oh, that's brilliant. Is he happy with that? Because I know as a manager of Celtic, I would be aiming for a whole lot more than that.
Well, and I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And you look to, his mentors with this, with Gordon Strachan, and to a much larger extent, in my opinion, Martin O'Neill, would they be of that mentality? I could never see Martin O'Neill being content with just where he's at. Think about the Martin O'Neill teams. Yes, he spent loads of money and put us in just a mountain of debt, but the mentality was there that he was never content with wherever we were. He was always pushing that team. And to a certain extent, that question needs to be asked of Neil Lennon for the very fact that he does persist with, sort of his favorite players. And it's clear for everybody to see that there is a level of complacency there. How much of that complacency that they're displaying is coming from him? I listen, I'm not accusing Neil Lennon of sort of filtering through there, but it is an interesting question that I feel needs to be asked.
It does need to be asked, and maybe Lennon needs to go and look at himself as well. It's not just the players that are doing it wrong. If you play someone out of position, they're obviously not going to play their best game. Lennon has to take the shortfall for that. But at the same time, if you're playing football, you should be versatile enough to play in whatever position you're put in and do it to the best that you can. For the life of me, I can't understand Charlie Mulgrew. I can't understand how he is so bad in that position he's put in, yet he was our player of the year. It makes no sense. to me, and I get that a lot of Scottish people have that affiliation with Mulgrew because he's Scottish and he's our prodigal son and he should be playing and all this here. But at the same time, he's shite. Get him off the pitch. He doesn't suit that position. He's a liability. Yeah, dead ball specialist, all good. Yay! But at the same time, if you're not going to play to the best of your ability, don't be on that pitch. I don't get it. At least with Stokes, first season he was there. He was the bad one. He didn't take it seriously, and you can sort of see through the seasons he's progressed as a player that he shows the passion he has for Celtic and playing football. He wants it, and you can tell he wants it because he doesn't care how everyone else is playing around him. He's doing it his way and he's getting the job done. He doesn't care. I can't understand why he wasn't put on that pitch when it was obvious Sam Ross was feeling miserably. It just makes no sense to me, and it makes no sense how Lennon can go back to that, from going to a great manager and revving these people up to go out and play for the badge, and now it's just go and play and we'll be happy with a 2-2 result. It's okay, we've got a point. Fuck that, I'm a Celtic fan, I want 3 points in the bag.
Very, very well said. Man, this is 2 for 2, MC. You come on here and you speak a lot of sense. Listen, with the Stokes issue, I think that, he was on the bench on Wednesday, so clearly Lennon felt that he was fit enough to play. So I'm going to discard the idea that, maybe he wasn't fit, and that's why, or he wasn't to 100%, and that's why he wasn't brought on. It was clear to see that Samuel wasn't 100%, but he persisted with them. So I'm going to take that completely out of the equation. We didn't even see him today, and I think that, in the comments that Neil Lennon made, over the weekend talking about the players that were doubts, Chris Commons, obviously James Forrest is out, sort of indefinitely at this point. I think that what we need to get refocused on, at this point is the players that we have at this moment. We have so many injuries. We have so many players gone that haven't been replaced. Figure out which of these players are best suited to a particular point on the pitch and put them there. You talk about Charlie Mulgrew and this shoehorning of him into the midfield. There's a couple of things that absolutely do my head in. First off, he doesn't read the game quite as well from the middle of the park. I don't think that he feels as comfortable with the ball at his feet, especially when he's being put under pressure. And when you put him into a situation like Wednesday against the Shakhtar team that's just looking to just come in numbers and congest that midfield on back area, I think that he doesn't quite have the composure. He doesn't quite know how to let the ball do the work for him. So many opportunities, the ball's played into his path, and rather than opening his body and let the ball work for him, he traps the ball, leaving the Shakhtar players loads of time to come and shut him down, and it leaves him fewer options to not just get the ball up the park, but to safely take it back. That's a liability in terms of counterattack, which is all that Shakhtar essentially has, counterattack and set pieces. So we need a steadier hand in the middle of the park. Charlie Mulgrew, for me, you mentioned that he was a player of the year, but he was a player of the year at center half. Why are we taking him out of his preferred position at center half? I think that his vision is much wider. He can read the game much better, and he doesn't have as many opportunities, or he doesn't have as much accountability, to facilitate linking up and trying to create in tight spaces. And that's all we're going to face, this Wednesday. It's all we faced this past Tuesday. We've seen it time and again. The only sort of silver lining I can see with Virgil van Dijk having a bit of a muscle strain is, perhaps Neil Lennon's going to hold his hand up and say, Charlie Mulgrew, we need him in the side, but he's going to play at center half. And, with that being said, I think Ambrose needs to play. Ambrose didn't play, in the midweek, and he's taken a lot of pelters, and I know that he's not everybody's favorite, but, given the point that I just mentioned, we're going to be so vulnerable on the counter. That they're going to pack the box, and I would be surprised if they had one player cross the halfway line. But if we're going to get lazy with all of the possession and make a slack pass here or there, we are very vulnerable on the counter, and we need some pace to be able to recover. And without Calvin Wilson, F. Ambrose really is our only option. Moyokolo is not going to fill in there.
It sort of worries me as well. I'm not sure if you're on the same boat as me, but if you look at the players from last season and you look at it from this season, you look at Forrester, you look at Mulgrew, you look at Effie, all these players that played their absolute hearts out against Barcelona, and you look at them on Wednesday night, Forrester, what has happened to him?
Yeah, and that's another topic.
Where was that great? It doesn't it makes no sense to me. I just don't get it. He was being targeted in England. Honestly, not a mission would he get on England team now. Not that I really care anyway, it's England. But you know what I mean? For him, he would never get on it because he's regressed. The same with Effie. Oh my God, we couldn't have praised him anymore. And now it's like, oh God, he's on the side. What's going to happen? Same with Mulgrew. It's scary to think of our team right now. It's not the team that we were excited to see, playing good football and thunder back at Celtic Park. It's not like that. It's actually going in thinking, will we actually win this? We shouldn't be thinking like that. We shouldn't. We should be like, we're going to Kazakhstan. We are going to win it. We'll take it back to Celtic Park and have a big party because we're winning 6-7-0. It's not we're going there having to win to progress to the group stages, which I really don't want to do because we will be embarrassed by that defence. Long throw-ins, let's just do that against Celtic because we'll score from them. It's scary.
MC, I listen. Yeah. I'm with you. I feel your frustration, and I'm right there. With everything that you're saying, and it's not. We're not bashing the board. We're not bashing the team. It's just frustration because we want Celtic to do well so badly. We want to continue last season on and have this be the new normal and not have last season be looked back on in history as just this sort of shining beacon in a sea of sort of mediocrity.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is of our own doing. But, all we can do is, Lennon said that he's bringing in a couple of players, a midfielder and perhaps a striker over the next couple of days. Too little, too late for me. But, fingers crossed we can bring in some quality. And wherever we wind up, Europa League, Champions League, we can, make the most of it and do it to the best of our ability. And, bring these magical European nights back to Celtic Park. I've seen them firsthand, and there's absolutely nothing like it. And that's what we are so desperate for. And that's why we're so passionate in our criticism. So, MC, thank you so much for calling in. And please, make this a regular thing, all right? Because with so many people calling in, and with absolute nonsense and everything else, you are the one that has all the sense, and we need all the sense we can get.
Oh, shucks. Thanks very much.
Have a good rest of your day, all right? Take care of yourself.
You too. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Bye.
Later.
Oh, I cut her off. I think she was saying bye to you.
Yeah.
I'm a dick.
Thanks.
Sorry.
No. Let me polish this turd real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't think it would be that bad if we end up in Europa League this year. If, say, next year and the year after, we can still get into Champions League and, at least into the group stages. Because, if we look back on this, from 10 years down the road, we're not really going to remember, that game in Kazakhstan not that bad.
I'll bet you we will.
Well, no, we'll be like, yeah, that game.
You remember Art Media? I do.
All right, fair enough. But if you look at it as a whole, like this span of a couple years, we were in Europe. If we have 1 year in Europa League, whatever. But for like 3-4 years straight, we made it into European play. So will it be that bad looking back? I don't know.
For me, it's not even. I see what you're saying. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I see the logic. But for me, a lot of it comes down to not just where we wound up, but how we wound up there. I think that the disappointment going into the Europa League this season is that we have been, and to a certain extent still are, in such a position of strength, and we wasted it. And that's the thing that's most frustrating for me. It didn't happen. If we had the pieces and we came out and it just didn't come off, or we came up against a strong upstart side and it just didn't get through, well, what can you do? But when so many opportunities were here to strengthen the side and just silly managerial decisions or tactical decisions or just playing players out of position out of necessity, that's the thing that's so frustrating to me. We're now joined all the way from Slovakia by Snake Pliskin. Snake, hail.
Hello guys, how are you?
I'm hanging on by an absolute feather. But you, sir, just like the bold MC, you call in with a lot of sense and a lot of perspective. So let's have it. Where are we right now in your mind? What grade would you give us in this transfer window? And what does this game on Wednesday mean?
Where we are is in transition. What grade I would give for the transfer is a C-, and this game on Wednesday is do or die. If we don't win this game, I think the season is going to be very unhappy for an awful lot of people. for an awful long time, regardless of the Europa League, because we've seen the way teams look at the Europa League.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Yeah, and the unfortunate aspect of it is, I'm right there with you. I mean, Rev makes a good point that, if we go into the Europa League, then, I mean, it gives us, see what we did in the Champions League last season, and obviously a lot's going to depend on the pieces that we bring in the next week before Saturday, which is going to be here right before we know it. If we go into the Europa League, you have to imagine that we're not going to invest quite as much as we would, say, if we got into the Champions League, and that's worrying. That's a worrying aspect. But, it does give us more of an ability maybe to progress into the knockout stages and so on and so forth. But with that being said, look at the Europa League over the past several years. These teams that are playing in that competition, not just in the knockout stages, but in the group stages, they are no mugs. And a lot of the football is extremely entertaining.
A lot of it also depends on how seriously the teams you get in your group take the Europa League.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the bigger nations, in the group stages especially, play younger players and players that are not in the regulars in their first team. Yeah. We were fortunate the last time we were in the group that we actually had some entertainment. Obviously, Atletico Madrid is a showstopper. Anybody will go and pay to watch them.
No question. I mean, think about, they had Falcao at the time, who, in my opinion, over the past couple of years, has been the best striker on planet Earth.
Exactly. So if you get a group with a team like that in it, this time, if we were to... I honestly think we're not going through on Wednesday. That's my honest opinion. As soon as the second goal went in on Tuesday, I said, we have no chance against this team. We don't have the pace, we don't have the creativity, and most importantly, we don't have the goals.
No.
It's that clear.
Yep.
I cannot see Celtic winning that game on Wednesday night and not letting a goal in at the other end.
Yep.
That's the way I feel about it. I mean, we saw again today, long throw into the box, total confusion. Shakhtar Karagandhi, everybody's laughing at them. They are no mugs.
No. And
people have made them out to be, I've heard comments, no better than St Mirren. I mean, they're a team who play with a back nine and two fast guys up front. Every one of the players is about 6 foot tall, so there's no way a Samaras is going to header a goal against them.
No.
You know what I mean? And people are looking at this in an insane way. I just think that this team are organised. They've got a manager who's a bit of a chancer, but he's canny. Yeah. And we don't have that canniness. I mean, all this bullshit, as soon as you hear, oh, we are not so experienced and it is so good for us to be in this. As soon as I hear this shit, I know we're not going to do well against a team like that. Now, I don't believe for a minute that the management team or the players took them lightly. But they just didn't play well enough to their capabilities to nullify all that and the long throw.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the Shakhtar manager, and I think that he played Neil Lennon like a fiddle. Think back to the interviews. Obviously, had a bit of fun tracking the luxury jet that the team took to Kazakhstan, and fair play. They're entitled to it. It's a long flight. We want them to be fresh, as fresh as possible, and that's all well and good. But when you start hearing Neil Lennon when he arrives, and all of the sound bites are, oh, the weather is beautiful here, all the people are so nice here, oh, the stadium is really, I mean, it's really enjoyable. I mean, almost like, almost in a patronizing tone, like they were expecting to find, the stadium being held up by barbed wire. But there was precious little being talked about the Shakhtar side. It makes me think, I mean, it was pointed out on the commentary on Wednesday, or on Tuesday rather, that, this Celtic side clearly didn't do its homework. I can't think of any other explanation. I mean, they had to have seen video for it, but they took them lightly. No question about it, I think. And it isn't even so much. Let me clarify. It isn't so much that the players went out on the pitch and they didn't put out full effort. To a large extent, I would probably say Samaras definitely did not. But I think that they weren't mentally prepared for what they were going to go up against. And that, for me, I think they were expecting, the side not to be as technically good as they were. That center forward for Shakhtar was excellent, and he found himself on the wrong side of Virgil van Dijk repeatedly. Wrong side from our perspective. I mean, he positionally, he was spinning Van Dijk, into a certain extent, Moyakolo, repeatedly. And we failed to cope. And it was a lack of focus, sharpness, whatever it was, but Neil Lennon was outmanaged, from start to finish. And to your point, I tend to agree with you. I mean, there's loads of people who say, right, this team is rubbish, and we should have scored all sorts of goals away there. So when we bring them back here, we're going to win 7 or 8-0. Well, I'm sorry, but when you create all sorts of chances and you have nobody to fire it in, and we still don't have anybody to fire those chances into the back of the net, I'm sorry, it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. It's like we have a stockpile of bullets and we have no gun to shoot it. What are we going to do? Throw bullets at him? I'm sorry. For me, it's not going to work. Samaras isn't an out-and-out center forward. I mean, if Stokes isn't fit, are we going to have Commons lead the line? That's really what we're left with.
Or Tony Watt or Amido Balde. I mean, that's where we are now. I mean, the other thing, I don't agree with you 100% that the players took them lightly. I don't think so. You got to remember that in their Saturday games, before they were playing Champions League games, they were playing entirely different 11s from the ones that ended up playing midweek. That's point number one. Gary Parker watched them, and then they had to show the Celtic team videos and DVDs. I'm showing my age. DVDs of the other team and who the players were and stuff like that, because Gary Parker hadn't seen them in the flesh, in the actual team in the flesh, because again, that's a tactic, because it's so far away, people get fooled. Alexander Hleb, who played for Bati Borisov, said their quality surprised us. And that's a big problem. Mm-hmm. This is a team who are not a brilliant team, but they're a team who play as a team. They know their system, they know where their players are going to be at certain times of the game, and they know how to get results. Against better technical teams, they will come unstuck. We are not a great technical team.
No.
That's the thing. What they did to us the other night is what we did to Barcelona, and we ain't Barcelona.
No.
We don't have any players of the technical ability of Barcelona.
Exactly right.
And this is the point. This team have done their homework on us. Mm-hmm. And they've done their homework on everybody they've played. The only thing that I think is in our favour is when they went to Albania, they were 3-0 down after half an hour. So that's the only thing saving grace for me. If we score in the first 10 minutes of that game,
oh yeah,
it's game on.
Yeah.
Because the crowd and the atmosphere will be such that those players for Karagandhi will never have played in that.
No, definitely not. They have absolutely no idea.
The thing that got me was, I was thinking a lot about the Bratislava game. Oh God, bloody game. But this isn't as bad as that in terms of goals.
No, it definitely is not. It's not as bad in terms of goals, and to a certain extent, I don't think it's as bad in terms of the personnel shortage. I mean, think back to then. We didn't have Boric for the first leg. I don't think we had Nakamura for the first leg, and I mean, it was just a skeleton of a team at that point. We saw the difference that the additions to the team made. I think Zarowski came in for the second leg as well. It might have been the year after. It's all blending together for me.
That's right. I mean, I remember the game very vividly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a few of the Bratislava team, or Media Petržalka, as they should really be called, because Petržalka is an area of Bratislava and that's where they play, although they went out of business and then they did a Sevco. But we'll not talk about that. What happened was a few of those players went on, and a couple of years later, or 5 years later, Slovakia were in a World Cup.
Yep.
And some of those players were at that World Cup.
Yeah.
No Kazakhstan player, no Shakhtar Karagandhi players going to a World Cup. And that's where the bigger disappointment comes in. They are a good team, but they are not a great team. They are not going to have guys that are going to go on and have huge careers somewhere in traditional Europe. And if we don't pull this out the fire, I think it reflects very poorly on planning and preparation that we have seen since January, as you said, with Gary Hooper. But not just that. When I was on the show last season, I was banging on about this. Our transfer business, in and out, must be concluded July 1st.
No question about it.
And I said this over and over, and people were like, oh, it's just Cliftonville. Cliftonville played okay against us until we scored. Mm-hmm. Then I said at the very latest, before we play Elfsborg, we need to get all the replacements in, and we got through that by the skin of our bloody teeth.
And yet we still did nothing.
And that's what I think is upsetting people most, that we see the level of income that has come into the club, And we've seen the players who have left the club, and we're looking at this thinking, this is so unnecessary.
It's self-inflicted.
We should be steamrolling that team, or we should have come back from Kazakhstan with a result which meant, okay, maybe it wasn't a great performance, but we can do this in the second leg. We're going to be okay. There is extreme worry over this tie on Wednesday, and I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's take account of where we're at now, and let's look ahead. First off, to your point, which I think was exactly spot on, the Shakhtar team and the manager, he goes out with 9 at the back, like you said. I mean, they're going to be hanging upside down from the crossbar like bats packing the box. I would be surprised if they have one player that goes across the halfway line in the first 45 minutes of the game. With that being said, the manager for Shakhtar goes out, and we didn't get outmanaged because of some sort of elaborate system or tactics or the formation that just broke us down. It's just because he set out to do very simple things exceptionally well. He set out to just execute the simple things, to be in certain places and to do just ordinary things exactly the way it needed to be done, out executing us. And he succeeded. That's exactly what needed to happen. With that being said, in the second leg, like we said, I feel as though we didn't do our homework with this team. I think that from a managerial standpoint, we took them a bit too lightly. I know that we differ there, but I think that subconsciously, I think that on the front end we thought we were taking them seriously, but we didn't give them enough credit, and that's not going to happen again. Or at least if it does, it's absolutely inexcusable. I think that we're going to have more of an opportunity to prepare, to formulate some sort of plan. Obviously, it's great the fact that we're going to be playing in Celtic Park, and there's absolutely no place on the face of the earth that is like playing at Celtic Park, especially when we have the run of play and we're mounting some momentum. So that's going to be a lot for this Shakhtar Karagendi side to be able to deal with. But tactically, we saw Georgios Samaras up there up top by himself against a team that quite frankly doesn't have all the resources. Like you said, technically, these aren't technically gifted players that we're going up against. With that being said, playing at Celtic Park, I'd be furious if we didn't have at least 3 strikers on the park, because we know that all they're going to do is sit back and they're going to try and protect, and we're going to have to. I mean, this is going to be. They're going to have numbers, packing the box. It's just a matter of shifting, the play around, cutting them open. I mean, the key for me that was missing, I think, to a large extent throughout this season so far, is the speed with which we move the ball around. If we're going to switch the ball, don't give the opposition side so much time that they have, ample opportunity to close you down. It's got to be quick, and that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to stretch them out. It's going to be very congested, but we're going to need to be able to move it side to side, and we're going to need to be quick with it. I mean, I think Samaras, put him back on the left, where he likes to play and where he's best suited, if he's fit. If he's not fit, what are you going to do? You can't play him. But Tony Watt needs to play, in my opinion, or if not, Anthony Stokes, if he's fit. Absolutely must play. And I know that Amito Balde's coming under a lot of pressure right now, but I see some progress with him, and I feel like he's only a goal or two away from it just clicking in for him. And once that confidence hits, I think we have a player there. But that's really going to be the formulation for me. Charlie Mulgrew back in the center of defense, where I think he belongs. Ambrose in there. I know he's a bit of a bomb scare at times, but we're going to need that pace and recovery, and fill the midfield with our solid but creative players. I mean, Joe Ledley, obviously, he had an absolute stinker in the Elfsborg game as well as this past Tuesday, but we know that he's a steady player for us, and his absence is always noticeable. And Chris Commons, the sad account was that I didn't think Chris Commons had that great of a game, but after Tuesday, he was the man of the match. And there were countless times where his first touch let him down and so on and so forth, but he was just better than everybody else. He's going to need to have an exceptional game, because a lot of times he's the one that unlocks these defenses.
I know. I think Chris Commons is vital, actually, for this game, because if he's there, he's the one player that can pick the ball up for Celtic from distance and score.
Yep.
He's the one guy. We don't have anybody else who can do that as consistently or as well as Chris Commons. So he must play next time, and I think he will, and I think Chris Commons will be very influential in the game. I agree with you about Charlie Mulgrew. Funnily enough, I thought Efe Ambrose had a good game today.
I didn't think he was bad. I agree.
I thought he was productive and useful when he got the ball. I think Izagiri needs to be dropped, but for this game, he can deliver. He is a threat, so we have to keep him. So Adam Matthews was good again today. But you look at our game today, it was 2 defenders who scored the 2 goals. And this is where I'm worried. Tony Watt worked very hard. Now, before Inverness scored, you remember Tony Watt had that great chance. Mm-hmm. And he fluffed it, and I was like, oh, God, Tony, please. It was such a great chance. And I was like, Tony, you got to take your moments, son. Mm-hmm. You've done it before, but when you're not in the team every week, that's a problem. When you're playing against Barcelona and you're getting the chance to run in on goal, your adrenaline gets you through that. But I hope that Stokes is fit. Mm. I have serious doubts as to whether he will be fit. So if it's not Stokes, I think we've got to play with Baldy and Watt. And don't have Tony Watt out wide. Get him in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah, he needs to play as if the park is only 20 meters wide, and that's it. He's not going any further wide than that. Just pretend as though...
I actually thought Atajic, when he came on today, looked as if he's got a clue. He's got some trickiness and some vision and a different option. So even him, in and around this squad for this game, could be a major factor here.
He changed the game today, in my opinion. That combined, him coming on combined with Adam Matthews pushing further up. You're right. Atajic is quite good in traffic, technically with the ball at his feet, and he's intelligent in terms of, he knows when to make those cutting runs to drag a defender open or drag a defender out wide and open up space for an advancing midfielder. We saw it a couple of times with Scott Brown making charges in, as well as Joe Ledley, and that's something that we really could use. That was the sort of faculty that Anthony Stokes had when he was partnered up with Gary Hooper, and we saw, that partnership just used to rip people apart.
I know. And I also think we may have loaned out the wrong Australian.
Yeah. I
think this is... Tom Rogic has a bigger build than Jackson Irvine, but he's to me, he looks like he does it in flashes. Maybe unfair on the guy, but what I saw of Jackson Irvine in the Liverpool game, I thought, no, this boy's got vision, and he's got passing ability, which... He found his target practically every time he passed the ball. Mm-hmm. So, and he's got a bit of dig about him as well. So, it may be that we've sent the wrong Australian out on loan. We can't know that. Playing one good game against Liverpool in a friendly doesn't make you a great player.
It doesn't, but the defense that I'll give Rogic is the example that Lustig gave us, where it's never an easy task to come in from a league that has a different schedule, for a different calendar, if you will. Coming from Scandinavia and coming in January, finding it hard to sort of get bedded into the team. You don't have a preseason, and meanwhile the team that you're joining is in full flow. But we saw with Lustig last season, once he got the opportunity to sort of find his feet, get bedded in, he had a fantastic season. So fingers crossed, that's what I'm hoping for from Tam Rogic. But this injury that he came up against it did him no favors. I still hold out hope. I know what you're saying. At certain times today, especially, he looked a bit of a lightweight. But I think given time, I think that he can blossom into a player. There's been enough people who've seen him play over the breadth and depth of his career, seen his trajectory, that say the boy's going to be a star. So I'm at this point, me personally, I'm willing to be patient and give him the benefit of the doubt. He's really going to have an opportunity with a lot of these early round cup ties, where he can come in and maybe play against some second division sides and build his confidence. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
I am too. I like the look of him when he starts to play, but I just feel sometimes he just doesn't go the whole 9 yards, if you get what I mean. Yeah. He just does it over a short period of seconds or minutes, right, and then he fades out. And I really hope he does do it. He could be something different again on Wednesday night. But these guys are going to have to step up on Wednesday night, all of them.
No question.
They're going to have to sit. Whatever else has been said, there ain't no Wanyama, there ain't no Hooper, and there ain't no Kelvin Wilson. So we're going to have to just say, right, they're not there. It's your turn to step up.
No question.
And if they don't do it, well, then we can reserve our judgment afterwards. But I will say one extra thing about Kelvin Wilson here. I say good on him for staying until Celtic secured European football to Christmas. Mm-hmm. He did that, and he obviously had a different reason for moving to the other guys. And I say well done to Kelvin Wilson for that. And his performance, I thought, in Sweden is the reason we're sitting in the position we are for a do or die on Wednesday.
Yep.
Just my opinion.
Yep. Very well said. Snake, thanks so much for calling in, pal.
No problem at all, and I'll talk to you again over the year.
Please do.
Well, I remain a sceptic, but I don't want us to go out. We'll see.
Well, keep the faith, pal. I'm with you, but I'm hopeful. We've seen momentous comebacks in the past, and to a certain extent we're due. It's just a matter of I can't find how or why, but doesn't mean it's not there. So hopefully, we can find a bit of magic, a bit of a spark that gets us through, and then maybe we can have some audacity in the transfer window and bring in some real quality and start up the season in earnest finally.
Yeah, and just before I go, I'll just recall the words that Dr. Joe said to Lubo, that he would have been told by one of the very first people ever to play for Celtic. Just remember, if you ever get the chance to go to Celtic Park, go, because magic can happen there.
Yep.
So let's keep it that way.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Fair enough.
Guys.
Cheers, pal. Snake's pretty much telling it how I see it. Rev, you're back now.
Yes.
I don't know. We're trying to figure out, listen, we're taking a lot of time to take stock of what's going wrong so far and, what is lacking. But let's take a moment and figure out how we're going to do this on Wednesday, because I think we're facing a crisis in confidence here, a confidence in the resources that we have, and it's a foregone conclusion. We can't bring anybody else in, who's going to sort of save the day. So we're going to need to do it with what we got. We talked a little bit about Chris Commons there, and he's going to need to step up and have an absolutely momentous game, especially knowing that the side that we're going up against is going to defend in huge amounts of numbers. But he's going to have his shooting boots on as well. I mean, he's got a rocket shot on him that we've grown to lean on and depend on over the stretch of the past years. What else are the keys? I think that we need to go out with multiple strikers. I mean, three strikers in Commons, I think, is the bare absolute minimum. I guess you could count Sammy in that three striker sort of pairing, but I want him pegged to that left hand side where he's happy, where he's comfortable. He can get the head and shoulders, do the little Hawaiian dance thing, and there's not so much of the falling on the ground with the hands on his face. And God forbid, please, Sammy, don't shave your beard off. What are some of your other keys?
Mulgrew in center defense, put him there with, Ambrose. That's really our only option.
I think so.
Or do you think put him and Lustig together and then Matthews on the right?
Well, I think it's an interesting point. I'm glad that you brought this up. Neil Lennon tends to favor players that are versatile, versatile in terms of where they can be on the park, and then he makes substitutions as such. We saw today with Matthews staying on the park, taking on a different position. Lustig has done it multiple times where he can either play at right back or, if we can make a substitution, move Matthews back, bring somebody else on in attack, and then move Lustig back into center defense. So I'm not sure that he's going to play Lustig to start with at central defense, but I think that he's definitely going to have to be on the park. Hopefully he can maintain his fitness. I know he was taken off, and it looked like he had a bit of looks like he's carrying a bit of a niggling injury. If he can start and we can get an extensive run out from him, I think he's going to be on the right hand side. And Charlie Mulgrew obviously at center half, and I wouldn't be inclined to move him into the middle of the park, even though Neil Lennon is always compelled to do so. But we can do the same with Ambrose. Although again, I don't think that's his maybe best position, considering how ropey he can be with the ball at his feet and careless at times. That's an absolute that's the death knell from any central defender or the central midfielder coming up against a counter-attacking side that's so defensive. But yeah, and now another issue that has sort of flown beneath the radar, in my opinion, listening to all the podcasts and the blogs and such, is the performance of Fraser Forster. MC highlighted it, in her call earlier, and it's, I think, absolutely bang on. At this point, if Fraser Forster isn't getting a look in the England team, it's not because he's playing for Celtic. It's because his performances have fallen off dramatically. And specifically, what's so worrying to me, and I think to a certain extent it mirrors F.A. Ambrose, where F.A. Ambrose comes back from the African Cup of Nations in February and goes right into the side that played against Juventus, and we saw the product of it. But that also coincided with Fraser Forster coming back from his neck injury, where that was his first game back, and I'm not sure his performance has been quite to that level that we saw earlier on last season again. And the thing that's especially troubling for me is that he doesn't command the box quite as well as he was when he was playing his best. I mean, he's massive. You know, it's like Frankenforster. He's 6'7". He's got a gigantic noggin on him, and his hands are like, you know, bigger than a Buick. I mean, so what is troubling to me is that, you know, in these first several games in preseason and qualifiers and the SPL, he seems to get caught in between far too often. You know, it's far too often, you know, I'm yelling out, keeper's ball. And it's almost like he hesitates and he can't get out there. And we saw that, you know, against Shakhtar. We've seen it, you know, repeatedly. And that's especially worrying for me. It's a mental thing. He needs to work on it with Woodsy and get it right. But that's a liability. You know, no question about it, especially from set pieces, which is really where all of the attack from Shakhtar is going to come from.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's something that I noticed. I thought, you know, that might have been, you know, preseason, not totally into the game, but that definitely carried into, you know, the league play and, you know, into Champions League and stuff. And yeah, you know, normally, you know, and we said it last year, you know, Fraser Forster has won us games, and that's what's so great about him. And, you know, if we were playing for the draw, you know, it was under the assumption, or, you know, at least like a 1-0 or something. You know, it's under the assumption that Fraser Forster is going to be a rock. And if he's not, you know, I'm not going to go as far and say, you know, we got to put Zalushka in, but we have to at least keep that in mind that we might have to make up a goal or two because of him being, you know, a little slacking for whatever reason.
Yeah, and to add to that is the uncertainty, you know, of the pairings, of the consistency. See, for me, one of the most important relationships on the park between the players is the one between the goalkeeper and the two center halves. They need to be constantly communicating, and that keeper needs to take charge. He needs to be barking out orders. He needs to be yelling. He needs to be in control and let the center halves know, you know, exactly where they need to be, exactly what needs to happen. And I'm fearful that we're losing an element of that. I think, you know, in addition, I mean, listen, we can list all day long the, you know, Neil Lennon's failings from the first leg. One of them, you know, the most glaring thing was Moyakolo and Virgil van Dijk going in. Van Dijk had played 15 minutes of regular season football all year, and then he's going in with a Champions League qualifier next to a guy that's spent the better part of the past 4 years on a training table, and they've never played together, you know, in the past. It's a French guy and a Dutch guy. Now, that's never going to be pretty. You know, and we saw the result of that, and how much of that is coming down to how much of that is affecting Fraser Forster as well. You know, and his ability to command the box. He needs to be more forceful and he needs to be more vocal. That's what I'm hoping to see. That's the player that I want us to see step up going forward. We absolutely need that player to come through once again, because when he's on his game, when he's on form, he saves us points. He gets us points. And this SPL season is not going to be the walkover that, in my opinion, that everybody thinks it's going to be. I think we're going to win, but it's not going to be another 25-point sort of romp off into the distance, without significant strengthening. Joining us now is Jerry McMahon. Jerry, hail, hail.
Hail, hail, Graham. Hail, hail, Rev. How are you both?
Good to hear you. We haven't talked to you in quite some time. What's the latest, pal?
Well, I'm just thinking back. The last time we spoke was probably in the run-up to the Scottish Cup final, and obviously I got a ticket, and that was a great day. And I always had a feeling that it would be a difficult season, a start of the season for us, because it wasn't looking good for Hooper or Wanyama. As Christmas wore on and the offers of new contracts seemed to be effectively ignored, and I don't think Lennon could have imagined that Kelvin Wilson would have been on his way out. So, I think that's been a huge problem. I think really enjoyed the last half hour of the show, Graham, and enjoyed listening to the Snake as always, and the pair of you guys as well. The only thing I would say is I'm always optimistic. Arrived at the stadium today probably an hour and a half before kick-off because I had to get my dad a ticket, and a really healthy queue there because they had two separate queues, one for the European match on Wednesday and the other one for today's match. And the as you might expect, the Champions League qualifier queue was much bigger. And I think that kind of tells you to me that despite all the problems with the team, there's a feeling there that we can do it. And I think I tweeted midweek there that despite all the problems, clearly we haven't replaced Hooper, but on Wednesday night, we created 5 or 6 decent chances. And, how different would it have been had we taken them, especially Forrest in the second half. And if you look at the match overall, although we lost 2 goals, I don't think they threatened us to any great extent. So if we can create, half a dozen chances over there with a poor performance, I think we can get 8, 9, 10 with a decent performance. Where I would agree with you is we need to play Stokes if he's fit. I hope to goodness Samaras is fit to play on the left-hand side. And you know what, if Bo Richter's fit, I don't know about Lenny's comments today, whether he's possible. I would love him to be into the mix as well, Graham. Because I think if these guys are there and Commons is fit, we've got the craft there to make a difference. And I think if anybody's looking at today's game and today's result as any kind of marker for midweek, I think that's just kind of mistaken. When you think of who we had out, we'd Samaras out, we'd Commons out, Kayal was out very quickly. I think there was, from memory, there was half a dozen of what you would probably regard as our key players there. And you would have to think that Lenny will take a risk with anybody that's capable midweek. And if he does, and they play like they're capable of, then we can go through the tie. Also, I did want to defend him in terms of, I know we seem to be frustrated about the central defence, and we have this weekly situation where Lenny alternates between 3 or 4 different central defenders. I think, to be fair, that's always happened with Celtic in recent times because we're not cash rich. We're not really able to buy the finished article. We do tend to get people that are decent but that are flawed. And quite often, Lenny has chopped and changed to try and get the right pairing. And where I would have sympathy for Lenny is that he would probably have hoped that 2 would have come together and made a compelling case for being in there on Wednesday night. And I'm sure he must be hugely disappointed that hasn't been the case. But I don't think it's a great side that we're up against, and I still believe there's huge room for optimism there, Graham. So, lots to chew on in terms of what I said there, so I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I appreciate your optimism. First off, the first point I want to take is, you mentioned there's not much to take from the game today going towards Wednesday, and to a large extent I agree. I mean, it's obviously not going to have the same players in the park. We're probably not going to play in the same style, maybe somewhat similar, but it's going to be different personnel out there. Where I would disagree with that point is the fact that there's a lot of similarity in terms of the road that we need to climb. We found ourselves 2-0 down to an opponent that was far outmatched on paper. An opponent that we are clearly saying we have plenty of firepower, to overcome, and we should, be able to take them on. Clearly, in the first half, we didn't have that, and it was panic stations at some times. I mean, let's be honest. But we saw the resolve, we saw the fight to be able to learn some lessons from what was going wrong in that first half, to claw our way back, to shift things around a bit, get it a bit more dynamic, a bit more attacking, do our homework, and then come out. In the second half, we had all of the possession, where that clearly wasn't the case in the first half. So if there's anything to take from this game and apply it to Wednesday, if I'm Neil Lennon, I'm saying we just think about what we did in that game. 2-0 down, just like we are to the Shakhtar side. And we clawed our way back, by having an improved focus, much better sharpness, much better energy level. We switched some things around to get it right where things weren't working. And we have the opportunity to do that just here. And can we beat this side, 6 or 7-0? Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot of things to come good. that, quite frankly, haven't been this entire season. And one of the most glaring issues is the situation at striker. The frustrating thing for me is that and we've banged on about this repeatedly, is that we had so much time to prepare and to do our homework and to plan and for the exit of Gary Hooper. And even if Gary Hooper wasn't leaving, we need spares, for the eventuality that Gary Hooper is going to be leaving. That's the thing for me that was so worrying. That's the thing that is so disappointing about, over the past several years being so wasteful with bringing in strikers that, we're trying to get these bargain buys, Brozek for $1 million or Bangura for, $1.5 million or, it's just, that's just not going to cut it. And I take your point that we have limited resources relatively to the types of clubs that we're trying to play with. We're trying to play with the Barcelonas and, the Manchester Uniteds, the Chelseas, the Bayern Munichs, and the Juventus teams with, a tenth, or if not less, than what they have to spend. But clearly we have shown the ability to pick out talent from underexposed markets, bring them in, and turn them into household names. Prior to last November, nobody knew who Tony effing Watt was. And then Chris Kuyava puts up a YouTube clip and it's getting a billion views. That's the type of thing that we need to be doing. The thing that's frustrating for me is not that we brought in players this summer that aren't up to it. It's that we didn't do anything at all. We're at a position now where 2 months ago I would have said, we can do better than Johnny Russell. Johnny Russell's a nice, sweet player, but I just don't think that he's quite at that level yet. We can do better by going, and fishing in the Dutch leagues or Scandinavia or Europe someplace. And yet we've done nothing, and I'm at the point now where I'm saying, why didn't we get Johnny Russell? He'd be better than nothing. And that's the thing that's frustrating. We're not cash poor at this point. We've brought in £20 million. We're debt neutral. Okay, so let's put that to one side. We had $500,000 in debt last year. So the Champions League income that we got was in excess of £30 million. And this is aside from everything else. We also brought in $20 million in the player sales. Now, I understand it's not just somebody just didn't dump a pile of cash amounting to $20 million this summer. It's deferred payments, and there's all sorts of escalators and so on and so forth. But these are resources that we have, and we spent a fraction of what we've sent out, and right now it's showing. Not just that. It's not even that we got $5 million for Gary Hooper, but then only spent $2 million on Balde. We were going to get Balde anyway. We got Balde before Hooper left, and Balde is not a Hooper. He's not a poacher. So that's extemporaneous. For me, that's a replacement for Daryl Murphy, who ironically we also spent $2 million on or thereabouts. But the fact that we didn't spend any money on anybody, to me, I find it to be appalling. And I get that there needs to be due diligence and so on and so forth. But when the chairman of the Dutch club that Finn Bogason is currently playing for comes out and announces what the valuation is, and we fall short by a few £100,000, and we aren't going to budge on it, when clearly that player is going to dramatically increase the likelihood that we can just absolutely bulldoze this Shakhtar side. But it's like we're treating the club as a stock portfolio rather than doing what makes sense to keep this club going, keeping this success going. And to be honest with you, a few £100,000 is not going to send us into financial ruin. We're not going to be liquidated by that, especially when we have another $20 million minimum payday on the other side. To me, that's a much bigger gamble than paying a few £100,000 more than what you value a particular player for. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that to some extent, Graham, but I think we also need to recognise that, the board knocked £100 off the cost of season tickets for this season. That is going to cost in the region of £4 million. Now, they've set up a children's section and a kids section in the lower tier, which is right next to the Green Brigade, where my season ticket is this season. And I've done a really good job of that. They've also set up a supporters lounge for people to go for a drink before the match. Put a lot of money into that. It looks really good. And I also think something that you need to bear in mind is that the club haven't made a profit in recent times. The money that they've brought in has been spent on resources. I think we need to recognise that in terms of the money we bring in from SPL, season tickets and match day sales, we probably wouldn't keep Joe Ledley or Scott Brown or Samaras. We couldn't pay those types of wages on an ongoing basis based on what we earn domestically. It is European football that kind of pays for our bigger and better players. So we're not quite in a position where I think we can just go out and say, well, whatever a club is asking, we can pay. Now, I think what we need to compare ourselves with is if you look at Chelsea and Wayne Rooney, for example, and, the Bale, Real Madrid situation, there's a number of big clubs that have gone in for players and have been quoted fees. And at this point in time, they've decided, we'll wait, because the closer we get to the window, there's every likelihood we'll get the player for the kind of money that we're looking for. And I think, Law will recognise that and will be looking towards the next 3 or 4 days in terms of trying to close deals. I know that's not easy, but we also need to try and make sure that we live over the next couple of years when we don't have healthy season ticket sales comparatively, because we don't have another major opponent within the league. We need to be kind of careful. But Graham, I'm confident in the next 3 days we will sign players, and we'll sign players that will make a difference. It's going to be a difficult season because we'll have a season of bedding these players in, and hopefully we can get into the Champions League. That's our biggest game of the season. But I think where we are in Scottish football with limited revenue at the moment, sometimes it's difficult for us, and it's not easy for fans to understand. But I am confident the next time I call you, we'll still be in the Champions League. Very confident, and I can't wait to get along there on Wednesday night.
Yeah, God willing, that is the case. And I mean that's what everybody. Listen, I think the consistent theme, no matter what, you and I are on two sides of this divide. That's clear. But I think that what needs to be reinforced a lot of times, and Twitter is an imperfect medium, where you're limited to 140 characters. I think that what's being lost in a lot of the dialogue back and forth, and a lot of it is passionate, because we both feel strongly about our opinions, and we both feel strongly about the club, and we want the best for the club going forward.
Absolutely.
And I think that the thing that really needs to be reinforced, through all of the rhetoric and the dialogue, is the fact that we both are arguing our point not because we're anti-Celtic, but because we love Celtic so much. And if we all can be more mindful of that, I think just generally we're gonna get away from this trajectory of vitriol and come back to more civility. That's what I'm hoping for, because it tends to get a bit out of hand at times. But I take your points on board, and I respect your perspective on it. And like you said, I hope that your optimism is rewarded and we get the result on Wednesday from some place that I'm not creative or imaginative enough to think about now. I can't figure out exactly how it's going to come together. It doesn't mean that it won't, but the precedent is quite terrifying, and I hope that, like you said, we can get the result on Wednesday, and we can bring in players that are going to fill in and sort of recharge the side, because we're lacking considerably.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think Twitter, it's polarised. I think one strength of this show is that it's always been a nice, honest, open debate, and there's no huge fallouts. People are able to state their point of view. They get plenty of time to do so, and that's an enormous strength of the show. I think that quite often Celtic get a result when you least expect it. But remember who we're playing against, Graham. They are not world beaters, and whatever weaknesses we have, if we play the way we can, if Commons, Samaras, Brown, our major players turn up on Wednesday and deliver, I think we can go through. Whatever weaknesses we have, we can go through. And as I said to my pal today, I think the Finn Bogasons of this world, some of what will happen following Wednesday will depend on whether we go through or not, because I think you might think Lowell might find that Lowell will pay that extra money, knowing that there's a big jump in revenue coming, and that effectively Celtic can run on at the level that they're currently doing and pay the Ledleys and Browns, because 2 seasons Champions League money will effectively bankroll us until Sevco join the league. And I don't doubt, sadly to some extent, that our crowds will increase on that basis. So let's keep the faith and let's talk soon, Graham.
All right, pal. Jerry, thanks so much for calling in. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Pleasure. All the best, Graham. Cheers. Bye.
He said bye to you, Rev.
You keep cutting everybody off.
Say bye. No, he said it, and you didn't say anything back. Say bye to Jerry.
Have a good day, Jerry.
There you go. Wasn't so hard, was it? I don't. Listen. Like I said, I think that over the past wee while, and really it's been building for longer than just this summer. There is a lot of vitriol. I know Rev doesn't see it because he's really the darling of Twitter and the Celtic Timternet and all of that. I don't know how he does it, but he's just the darling of everybody. But I seem to get my fair share, and that's fair enough. Listen, I'm just some idiot with a microphone, and yeah, I put a lot of time into this and everything else, and I have a wife that's an absolute saint. But when I see people like Paul Larkin taking personal abuse, there seems to be a faction of the support online that considers themselves defenders of the club, and by virtue, they feel as though anybody who attacks the decisions of the board, or who, I guess I should say, is critical of the decisions of the board, as I have been, they consider that to be an attack on Celtic itself, which I don't consider the members of the board to be synonymous with the club itself. I find that the club is a much bigger entity than just that. And what I find also curious and interesting is that there's a faction of people who think that when you say that Celtic is the support, the support is what makes Celtic, they feel as though you're Hunnish, because the Huns somehow think that their liquidated club is the same because the supporters are the same. And it's a mind-boggling, horrible analogy. It's not even close. And this obsession with whatever the hell Sevco is doing is really just people have lost the plot with it. But getting back to my original point, if you want to have a go at me, that's fine. I've been called the soup taker, which I find to be absolutely hysterical.
I don't even know how that applies, because
that was exactly my point. I don't understand how I could possibly be considered a soup taker. I'm guessing that the people that have lobbied that towards me. I was on the Celtic Dream Show, and repeatedly in the chat room, that's been taking the soup, and I like hot soup, and actually, soup is good food. The dead Kennedys were right. I like a bowl of soup. On a cold day, yeah, like a little minestrone. A little captain's wafer. Oof, I'm right where I need to be. So yeah, I like some soup. Definitely, there's a soundbite for you. So I think that it's maybe people who have heard it used in a derogatory term maybe don't understand exactly what it means. I'm not going to go into that. It's disgusting. But they lobby that towards me. I'm anti-Celtic. I am just a Yank that thinks he knows everything about Celtic because he's been to Celtic Park once, which is wrong on 2 accounts. Number one, I've been to Celtic Park twice. And number two, I thought that I knew everything about Celtic before I was ever even near Celtic Park. So you're wrong on both accounts. But the larger point of that is this really what it's coming to? You're a defender of the club who you are basically saying the board is. So anybody that's critical is anti-Celtic, and your only defense is personal attacks. I mean, that's fine coming at me. You can bring it all day long. I really don't care. But when you start lobbying that sort of thing at Paul Larkin, you're way out of your depth. Way out of your depth. A man that has supported Celtic, from the very beginning with every bit of his being. Not to say that he's a better supporter than anybody else, but he's definitely no less of a supporter than anybody else either. And he deserves to be treated with a lot more respect than personal attacks towards him. And that's really what the breaking point for me was. It's fine and dandy to have a go at a loudmouth like me, but you're way out of your league going after Paul Larkin and other people who I have a lot of respect for within the Celtic community, and it's troubling to me. And I think that, as I was talking to Jerry, I think that a lot of the context around our opinions, which everybody has a right to, everybody's entitled to, is in the context of wanting Celtic to be successful, wanting this magical period to be extended, and being frustrated by the fact that much of our shortcomings at the moment are of our own doing. And anyway, that's my piece there. I just it's a very trying time, for the sport in general, for the club. The next week is probably going to be the most anxious week that I can remember. In terms of the future prospects of the club, for all sorts of different reasons. And I think that the good first step in all this was bringing the Green Brigade back. I heard somebody in the pub today, and I seriously, it took everything I had to control myself and have a reasoned civil debate. I heard somebody today say, "Oh, see, when Neil Lennon put the SPL trophy down in front of the Green Brigade, that was it for me. That's an absolute disgrace because, why are they any better of a supporter than I am? I sit in the North Stand. Don't I deserve to have the trophy in front of me?" Well, yeah, actually you did. They do parade the trophy around the entire team. So, dry your eyes for a second. And secondly, I don't see anything wrong with Neil Lennon and acknowledging the Green Brigade, considering all that they've done, all that they've been through, all the fire that they've come under, and they still continue to come under. I'm getting reports now that there was, some trouble with the police for them getting into the stadium today. They take their time and their effort and their money to come up with banners and flags and tifo and the Barcelona display that was absolutely unbelievable that the club sells in the shop for £40. I don't see a problem with them getting a bit of additional recognition. Just to have a problem with a bit of additional recognition for the Green Brigade is sort of like saying, it's sort of like Joe Ledley saying, well, why are we giving Georgie Samaras the man of the match? I was playing too. It's not saying that the Green Brigade are any better supporters than anybody else. It's just, they're acknowledged for the type of atmosphere that they bring and, the additional effort that they put in. Nobody's saying that they're better. So everybody needs to dry their eyes and get a grip. We're not joined by James Quill. Hello, James.
I am not bad. How's yourself? Good show again?
Yeah. Not bad. I'm just, I'm just ranting and raving as usual. I'm, but I made a big revelation. I like soup.
I'm just after my homemade soup, so
there you go. There you go. I like hot soup. I like Italian. Listen, my mother makes an amazing Italian wedding soup. My mother's side of the family, they're all Italian. They have the escarole in there with the little meatballs. That's good soup. So,
the one thing to always remember, Graham, that the Celtic family around the world, Australia, Hong Kong, all around the world, there's people who are as passionate as you is for Celtic, but they can't afford to go to every game. It costs a lot of money, so always remember that. You're just the same fan as I am. I was at the game today. I unfortunately missed the game during the week, gladly, and I was at Aberdeen last week. You can hear my throat today. I was in 1-1-1 today, and our nice copper friends have upped the ante. I don't think they like it. Section 111's back opened, and I don't want to go on about it all day, but line of police searching people coming in. They were taking young lads' scarves off them to look at them. We had loads of police filming the whole game. Keep pointing up if they're speaking about somebody, pointing, obviously intimidation. I'm just seeing the Twitter photos where behind the Celtic Superstore there is a ticket office where the people in section 111 have to collect their tickets, and if you see it, it's from the Thunder. The police are standing watching, and what I've heard is I got mine early when it just opened. They were filming too. So as far as I'm concerned, the police have upped the ante. They're bailing that 111's back open, and I thought there was a bit of intimidation today, very much in the section, and I think it showed at times. Don't get me wrong. I mean, what we're getting, the product on the park isn't very good, and I think everybody's on a downer, knowing that we could have bought players. It's not rocket science. Everybody could see what we're needing, and you've seen it today. You've seen it during the week. Fortunately, I didn't see it because I refused to watch the highlights. I was working, because when I seen the result, I was at Aberdeen last week, and that was a bit better. But today, on the pitch. I mean, I thought Ambrose played well, but he was more relaxed. Where in Aberdeen and other games, he had a nightmare. He looked uncomfortable. A lot better today. I thought Brown was excellent again, pushing the team forward. But we're still lacking something huge, not just a striker. I think you said earlier that the speed of Celtic, 1-2s and things was lacking. We were giving people on the edge of the box like Baldy. Instead of the players running through for the ball while he holds it, we're waiting on it to get it back. You know, like Brown did it once when he ran by the player to get the ball back. We needed more and more of that, get behind the defence, but we weren't doing it, and I thought they were very comfortable at the back. What do you think?
Oh, you know what? I was expecting Rogic to fulfill that role. You know, I'm obviously he's a creator, but I mean he's shown examples of running onto a ball and sending a slide rule pass through that can cut open a defense. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the lack of an advancing midfielder that can run onto a ball that Balde's either going to flick on or bring down, in support was repeatedly missing. In addition, I mean, the one knock I will put on Balde is I'm not sure that he's quite strong enough, and hopefully he can build some of that strength. It may be something that he's not familiar with coming from Portugal, but all of the physicality, it seemed as though he struggled to cope with the Inverness center halves, that were constantly muscling him down, and he'd hardly ever get called for a foul, which is, I'm sure, something that he's not familiar with. But you're absolutely right. The lack of any sort of an advancing player that can pick the ball up from there, if it's got to come through the air, I mean, it's essentially ensuring that we're just going to turn the ball over.
Of course, I mean, Baldy isn't the most speedy player too. He needs a ball on his feet, and he doesn't run about like maybe Commons or Stokes does or Samaras. I mean, in the first half, and especially shooting up at the bit we were, and you're watching Tony Watt try to cross the ball, and you're saying, why are you in the wing? There's nobody there. There's no. I mean, Brown was everywhere today, and you can't expect him to do everything. It was the same with him and Ledley last week at Aberdeen. If you looked at Ambrose and Kyle in the midfield, it was going nowhere. And Brown and Ledley took the bill with the horns against Aberdeen, and they were everywhere. The same again today with Brown. Ledley came on. I suppose it's hard to get into a game when the game's running away for us. I mean, it was just about one-sided the second half, but we still weren't getting a lot of chances. I mean, how many chances did we have? It was a great goal. We got the equaliser, but you're looking at everybody, and everybody Celtic fan can see it. The board know, Celtic fans aren't happy. I think that was one of the reasons the game brigade and 111 was open today, because you could see by the police's presence that they weren't happy, that they were up in the ante today. The section was open today, and it's shown in the pitch. You could. I don't know what it is. It's something. Of a lack of a goalkeeper, as you said earlier, that's another thing. It doesn't come out for the ball. 6'7". The time he puts his arms up, he must be well over 7 feet, and they can't come out for the box. And you looked at their goalkeeper today; he was coming out and catching the ball.
Exactly. I mean, repeatedly, my comment was with corners and with set pieces, we're straight to the keeper every time, straight to the keeper. We don't. I mean, we were so deadly. I mean, you think back to the goal that Charlie Mulgrew scored in the last Old Firm derby, where Chris Commons takes the corner and Charlie Mulgrew just ghosts in, like a ninja on the back post, bam, just like a Superman diving header through. We never do that kind of thing. We never have. If they're going to overload the box on a particular side, we never have anybody ghosting in the back, on the back stick. It's always, just lump it straight into the middle of the box. At the end of the game there, Mulgrew's taking his sweet old time. There's only 3 minutes of added time, which was a shocker. And, it's the last play of the game. We're just taking our time, walking down there. Charlie Mulgrew, straight to the keeper. I mean, and we have players that are just, spread out almost outside the box. It's like, get in front of the keeper. Somebody's got to get in front of him.
They were winning just about every cross ball. Baldy was jumping and it was going beyond them, and there was a lot of timing off, today. We were hardly winning a ball there, and when we did, like Virgil did one in the second half and over the bar. I thought he should have scored. I think it was just by the post. I can't remember now, there was a couple of chances. And it's just, I mean, the thing is, with the Huns going out of business, I mean, would this be the same spending regime if the Huns hadn't cheated and went out the game? Would we have been in and on? Because I think they've took it for granted that we're going to get into the Champions League again, not spend any money, and to me, we've got egg in my face. It's not going to. I can't see it happening. I'm working again. I'll not make the game, unfortunately. But you're looking at it, and I don't know any Celtic fan that truly thinks that we're going to score 3 goals without them scoring. But as Jerry was saying earlier, you never know with Celtic. Sometimes we can turn it on the big games, but that's when you need special players. Where are they?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, the frustrating thing, I keep banging on this, but I think you're right. I mean, it's the question being asked: would we have the same spending policy if the Huns never died? And I'd have to say no. I'd have to say that it's the type of thing where we would need to keep up, essentially, to be able to be competitive, on that stage. And thank God, that the Huns did eventually have to pay for their sins, and they did die for all the years of cheating. And quite frankly, I don't think they paid enough. And I don't think the story is quite over with that now dead entity, but that's a completely different discussion. I think that, it's the type of situation where we only pay just enough to get us by, whatever our objectives are, except we pay just less than that. And that's the gamble here. That's what Peter Lowell is betting on. And last year he bet correctly. It was a much more fortified bet last year because we had Victor Wanyama coming into his own, really discovering himself as the dynamic midfielder that he's become and is continuing to display in the EPL. And we also had Gary Hooper, who was probably our most prolific goal scorer since, the analogy's been made since maybe, Hartson or, it's certainly Scott McDonald's first season. But he was much more comprehensive than that. We don't have those resources anymore. And Neil Lennon is struggling to tactically fill that void. And to a certain extent, you can't blame him because we don't have that. We don't possess that player. And that's the thing that's so frustrating in all of this. It's.
Plus, remember we've had a lot of injuries. It's came at bad times, which injuries are always bad times.
But the same thing happened last August as well, and we were able to see it through because we had reinforcements. Here we are at a weaker stage because we've let these key pieces go without any sort of addressing for them. So that's the thing. I'm with you. I know that we had Jerry on just now, who was much more positive than I think a lot of folks are. I'm slightly pessimistic, probably on the same level to where you are. I'm hopeful, but I'm just struggling to find out exactly how this is going to come off on Wednesday, and I'm hoping that my struggling to have enough of an imagination is just a blind spot on my end, and we can figure out a way.
Yeah. I mean, we're all down, and obviously seeing the game today. I mean, don't get me wrong, Inverness scored 2 cracking goals, but we're saying to myself, we're playing Inverness here, but is that our calibre? That Inverness are facing up to us with the same type of players? And you're saying, it shouldn't be, I mean, I felt sorry for Brown, especially today. I mean, especially with he can't be 100% fit, he's hit. But he just keeps running and running, and our crosses is shocking. Obviously, people were slagging James Forrest because in for a lot of stick, and obviously he's got the injury. But we missed somebody like him today. Actually, even if he'd only done it once or twice and put in a decent cross or a decent thing through, he might have scored.
I agree completely, and the proof of that was Adam Matthews going forward in that right-sided midfield sort of winger option role that James Forrest typically would occupy, and we were a completely different side once he came in. So I agree completely. James Forrest's absence, even though he hasn't been on form as of late, struggling with injuries, I think was definitely missing. That role, if it's not going to be James Forrest, somebody in that position that can do those things was missing. And fair play to Lennon for figuring it out and getting it sorted, because just getting a point out of this tie today is that has far less of a sting than if we were to drop 3 points.
Oh, of course, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, obviously before I go, I'm just going to. I've not got much hope for during the week, but as I said, you're a fan for one reason, as you hope when times are down that you're going to turn it on. And just to say, I was on your show a couple of weeks ago. I was a bit more nervous and ranting. I'm a bit slowed down now. I'm getting used to this, and enjoy your show. But as I said, we'll just have to hope, that we can pull something off. Because if we don't strengthen and get into this Champions League, and we draw teams like Real Madrid with Ronaldo and Manchester United, we will get hammered. It's not the same as last year, people are saying we lost the spine. Wilson, who seemed to play good in the big games, Wanyama and Hooper, and it's probably true. I think we can see that people's got a good point. But as I said, we can only hope, and we'll see how it goes.
Yep, fingers crossed, and it's everything to play for on Wednesday. So, James, thanks so much for calling in, pal, and hope to hear from you soon.
Okay, you take care. Bye.
Cheers. Now joining us is the Green and White writer himself, Mr. Paul Larkin. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Graham.
Paul, thanks first of all for joining us. Were you at the game today?
I was.
So we're hearing some descriptions of the police and they're sort of upping their activity in light of the fact that the Green Brigade was invited back into the ground. What was the atmosphere like today?
Yeah, I approached the ground to the kind of Brighton side, and there was obviously a ticket sale going on behind the Celtic show, and there was an incredible police presence there. The guy I was with, who was kind of completely kind of naive to the situation, was kind of like, "Oh, something's going on here," and all that kind of thing. Of course, I kind of tippled pretty much immediately what was going on, certainly. I thought the Green Brigade today were a bit subdued. Now, obviously, I'm not in this section, so I didn't know kind of what was going on at the time and stuff like that. But I was kind of saying that to people around me, and people were sort of commenting. And one guy said, "Well, maybe they're just watching the game." So that might have been the reason for it. But certainly, for the people I've spoken to and to photographs and that I've seen, there does seem to have been a kind of upsurge in kind of police presence and the beloved focus,
Yeah, and it's especially troubling. It's like we take one step forward and two steps back. If we're going to let the Green Brigade back, but we're going to turn Celtic Park into a police state, which it has been, and just sort of up the pressure with that. It does nothing to sort of bridge the mistrust that I think is opening up between the support and the powers that be at Celtic Park.
Yeah, I was in France last week and I was at Metz against Avignon, first time in my life I've ever been at a French league game. And the Metz fans, this was in League Two, Metz have kind of went on a downward spiral. They went right, basically out the leagues completely, and then so they are now coming back. And they had ultras at the both ends of the ground, right behind the goals. And they also had at both ends, they had two guys who didn't face the pitch at all, faced the fans, and who kind of directed the chanting and all that kind of thing. And they went through a variety of stuff. They were singing songs about the players, positive songs about players, positive songs about the team, anti-Nancy songs, because that's a kind of rival.
Right.
Then there was a combined protest against Friday night football. The game was played on a Friday night, and it was clear to people around me that what they were protesting against was, the fact that the game wasn't on a Saturday, it was on a Friday night at a time that it wasn't suitable to them, and so on and so forth. They indulged in the mock fighting thing, is it moshing or whatever you call it, and all that kind of thing. But the difference was, at no stage was there any police around them at all. There were probably 3 or 4 guys in orange t-shirts at each end who were kind of stewards. And the stewards could not have been any more laid back at all, It was just kind of like, we'll stand here, you get on with it, and then we'll all go home. And that's basically what happened. And I kind of think that that's kind of what, that's what's sort of been missing. I spoke to a member of the Green Brigade before the Ross County game, I think it was. I think it was before the Ross game. And he was relating a story to me about how he'd seen the kind of focus type police operate in English football. And it was very much, all right, how you doing? And kind of, right, no trouble for you today, etc., etc., let's build a relationship type thing. And to be honest, that's my experience. The kind of football intelligence officers that you encounter in England want to build a relationship with the fans, so they can actually not so much try and get them arrested, but actually try and stop them getting arrested.
Right. Right.
And just try and say, be able to say, here you, come on, get a grip of yourself, whatever, if anybody, because nobody's saying that everybody's always impeccably behaved, 100% of their life and stuff like that. There's the disconnect thing you're talking about is that there does seem to be this three-way thing where it's the Green Brigade talking to Celtic, who are talking to Focus and Bat, and then, you kind of wonder if everybody's kind of on the same page here, because, you would like to think that sort of whilst you would like to think that if Celtic have said, right, this is what we need for you to go back in a section, then you can guarantee the Green Brigade are saying, well, what we want for you is a bit of respect, and not to jump doing us anytime we do anything like that. And it's quite. I read a tweet that was retweeted many times that says that a 5-year-old boy was searched, gone into section 111, and it's just like, that's a red flag to a bull as far as I'm concerned, Graham. Because if that's my 5-year-old, I'm sorry, you're no searching. So
it's just twisted. It's twisted. The logic that, or I guess the lack of just reason. And it's similar with the TSA over in this country. Where you're checking kids' diapers and things like that. It's the nanny state gone mad. And the examples that you point out, I think, are very proactive and very pragmatic. To use an example from over here as well, you see the police forces that are making inroads and having success in reducing crime and reducing murders and reducing just sort of the criminal element, are actually doing community outreach, having, the police athletic league and bringing kids off the street and having them participate in sports and developing relationships so that, the police officers are out in the community, they know these people and there's a familiarity and a mutual respect. Do you see that there would ever be a possibility of that in Scotland?
It's difficult. I think the culture in Scotland with football matches has changed so much. When unless I was walking about blind when I was growing up, pretty much everybody at football matches were kind of roughly the same type of background, and basically it was all working class guys that went, and I think that's changed a lot. I really do think that's changed a lot, and you would hate, somebody said something to me today. We were having a discussion about it, and it was like somebody, and the guy was an older guy, and he wasn't talking about the Green Brigade. He was kind of ranting and raving about the fact that we've not spent money and stuff like that. And he said, "I tell you," he says, "it's going to end up soon with the only working class people in these grounds are going to be the people that are paid to be here, i.e. the players and the employees, and that's it." And I said, "Well, that will never happen in Scotland." And he says, "But I would love it if they did." And I'm not saying that that's definitely what's happening, but the thing that's changed for me big time is people used to get a certain amount of leeway if they had the same colour of scarf on as you did. If they were out of order, you told them they were out of order, and Celtic fans self-policed and all that. I think that could still happen, but the amount of pressure that seems to be getting applied to people right now is just incredible. And I know people at Celtic have been working tirelessly on this and things like that and all the rest of it. But, I mean, speaking personally, I was always brought up to have nothing to do with the police at all. It was just, you didn't speak to them, certainly didn't call them and all that kind of thing. And I know people will be like, "Oh, God, that's a kind of draconian attitude and all that kind of thing." And I know there's probably police officers listening and that kind of thing. But what I would say is, without question, is that the way, if you want trouble at Celtic Park, then just keep doing what you're doing. Keep pressurising the Green Brigade, keep hassling them, keep doing things like that. Because even if somebody who is in the Green Brigade or not, maybe just hang on. If it's a head case, for whatever reason, then if you push them, they're going to react. Simple as that. I mean, I'm sure refs had similar experiences where, you get pushed and you get pushed and you get pushed at football matches, and there are some people who are just going to explode.
Yeah.
And there's your story, there's your excuse. Yeah, I mean, it's, there has to. I mean, Jimmy McGovern always wrote a very good line, which was, "You keep treating people like scum. Eventually, they'll act like scum."
Yeah,
and that has to be avoided, because I really do think that we've reached the point where we're almost at a kind of Clockwork Orange stage. The way that we're viewing people here and all that kind of thing, and it's like we're talking about human beings.
yeah,
and there kind of has to be that. If there was a kind of a human side to the focus, which doesn't seem to be apparent thus far, then you never know. They might actually find a wee bit of common ground where. But certainly, I mean, look, the other thing is, I always say it, we've all been angry young men, and the Green Brigade aren't there to follow orders. You know what I mean? Because, as I said, when I started going to football matches and when I started growing up, there was nobody following orders of anybody. People just turned up. I mean, it was a kind of accepted thing that you just rolled into town, you drank the town dry, you seethed and you roared and you let off steam and you hopefully celebrated your team winning, and then we all went home, and that was kind of it. Now it just seems to be the kind of circus that follows Celtic around. Like any time we go anywhere or we do anything, and people were making issues out of this and that and different things and all that kind of thing. It started to awaken me a wee bit. As I said on the Homeboys a couple of weeks ago, some of the songs that I heard, the Liverpool fans were unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, really unbelievable in Dublin. But I realised that, first of all, there was not a single person around me giving two hoots about it. Right, that was the first thing.
Right.
And I thought to myself, God, and is this the way I've become? Where I'm now starting to listen and say, oh my God, and this kind of thing. And it's. I think I genuinely believe if Celtic and Focus and the police just left the Green Brigade alone for a month, everything would just die down and go back to normal, and we'd go back to just hopefully supporting the team and singing the songs and trying to create an atmosphere. Because I heard you talking to James here just before I came on there that that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear about Wednesday isn't the actual game; it's the fans. Yep. Because right now, we need the fans to be on side.
Yep.
If we knew there were 60,000 people going to be there on Wednesday, we think, right, we could absolutely annihilate this team. But you could sense it today that if things go against us, I mean, I've seen numerous players in spats with fans today. I think I've seen that in my life before. Occasionally, if you think Neil Lennon and people like that, I've seen a guy literally ready to kill Fraser Foster today. To the point where Fraser Foster actually reacted. And now there's a guy, I've never seen a temper on in my life. He actually reacted to it, and I was quite shocked. So you kind of think, that the point of this has to be a uniting of the fans. I mean, that's what I think most shows have been preaching, people on Twitter. We want the fans united as much as possible, because that's what gives us the 12th man in these kind of things and these kind of occasions and stuff. And I thank God that the Green Brigade are first of all going to be there on Wednesday, because that would be in itself would be like a man short almost if they weren't there. But secondly, I think that, I think I can speak for everybody I've spoken to in the last week, is that we're all at the point where we're like, we need to start talking about football again. Mm. And the problem is we're not being allowed to. And I don't think that's the fault of the fans, I have to say. I don't know what you think, Graham.
No, I completely agree with every point. I think that the integral, the most important thing that needs to happen right now, it's clear to see that there is a huge rift amongst the support. And the division was not caused by the support. But I think that the first thing that needs to be done, to bring the support back together, and like you said, talk about football again, is to stop vilifying certain aspects of the support. Because what happens is, whether or not you're in the Green Brigade, or you like the Green Brigade, or you think the Rascals and they should be kicked out, or they think that they're bigger than every other, than they're better fans or whatever. The bottom line is, if you have, some kids, maybe of a similar age, 17, 18, 19 years old, those are the people that you don't want to sort of shut out of the park. Those are the people that are going to come in. They're going to go absolutely mental. They're going to, be the loudest, and not to say that they're better fans than anybody. And it doesn't even need to have an age range. If you're looking to go and support the club and absolutely get mental, behind Celtic. But yet you see the Green Brigade coming under all sorts of hassle for, lateral movement. You got the police searching you going in. There's people with video cameras. It leads to a bit of unease generally about, right, well, am I supposed to stand up now? Is this going to be disallowed? It's not the same sort of mentality. Like you said, you want to go to a football game and support your team and have a bit of a release. But when there's so much just attention and constraint being put on, a particular section of the crowd, I think it mutes not the enthusiasm, but just the general instinct of supporters to a certain extent. What do you think?
I'll tell you. I mean, right now, as I see it, there's several factions, and I'm talking about the match going support, because I think social media can escalate issues way beyond just maybe where they actually are, the middle ground is. You've got the Green Brigade, you've got supporters of the Green Brigade, you've got people who didn't like the Green Brigade, you've got people who are going crazy at the board for no spending money, you've got people who are defending the board for no spending money, you've got people who are just there for the football, you've got people who want to be there for an event and an occasion and go mad when people didn't sing and dance around them and stuff like that. You've got people who encourage the players, you've got people who slag the wolf for the players. And when you throw all that into the mix of a Celtic team, let's face it, I thought that was as bad a performance as I've seen for a Celtic team in years today. And what really annoyed me about it was the acceptance there.
Yeah.
There was an acceptance by Neil Lennon, which is just no good enough. It's no good enough for me at all. I mean, look, the way I look at it is, yes, tough trip to Kazakhstan. Yes, we're without 5 or 6 players, etc. How does that stop? How does losing players or being in Kazakhstan stop you busting a gut to win a football match? Because we never done that today. Certain players did not do that today. And so you throw that into the mix of an already crowd that's divided about this, that and next thing. And that's how you end up with people going berserk at players and creating an atmosphere. And I mean, people were going just mental. You know what I mean today? I mean, people who, I mean, it felt like to me that the Hibs game we played last season, 2-2 draw, start of the season, exactly like that. No cohesive. Players don't know what they're doing. Everybody's looking to somebody else to step up and take the mantle. And I could see it coming. There's guys around me were on Mulgrew's back all the time, and he wasn't great by any stretch of imagination. And then they pushed him into central midfield. I thought, oh my God. And he loses 2 balls in the space of 5 minutes in central midfield. And people were going crazy. And I think that then when you get that, and I mean, the guys I was with were just going absolutely mental about Brown and Mulgrew, and Matthews was the only one that was good, and he didn't get a grip, this, that, and next thing. Sitting in the car, and then Lennon comes on the radio and says, oh, stalwarts like Mulgrew and Brown and all, and they just go mental. You know what I mean? And it just kind of, I mean, I'll tell you something that really shocked me today, and maybe I'm just looking into this too much. I can't remember the last time I seen Celtic team celebrate an equaliser like that when it wasn't the last kick of the ball. Celtic teams in the past would have been, that goal goes in, get up the park, let's go for the winner. Instead, we had a 20-minute lap of honour, because after the equaliser, that kind of bit into 2 minutes. And yourself, when you've got a referee like Craig Thompson, he's got to do everything by the book.
Exactly.
So despite the fact that there was 3 goals and a sub in the first half, numerous subs in the second half, he's booked 2 Craigbenny's Cali players for time wasting. He's told the goalie umpteen times to get on with it, even though he's allowed him to go one side to the other with a by kick and that kind of thing. You just know after all of that, what goes up on the board? 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what
Shocking.
I mean? And it always happens with him or Brines or something. If that's a younger referee, they would be like, it has to be 5 minutes. Simple as that. So I think that what we need to get back to is we need to get back to a wee bit of reality. You know what I mean?
And a sense of urgency.
Yeah, aye, because I don't think fans are going to be. I mean, I thought there was a lot lower crowd there today than there was at the Ross County game, and I have no idea what the reason for that was. It's Saturday, 3 o'clock, decent weather. But as you say, I tell you, I mean, we talk tactics, we talk football purists and that kind of thing. I think the vast majority of fans just want to see their team give everything,
Yeah.
And if they give everything and you get beat, there's not really much you can do about that. But if you didn't give everything and you didn't win, then they're going to go crazy.
Yeah. And the thing that was shocking for me was how much of a pass Samaras got after Tuesday's game, because for me, it was probably the least professional performance I've seen, and he's been one, to the delicate flower thing, and it's not where he wants to play. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're carrying a knock. I don't care if you don't want to play in the center. You're a professional, and if you want to call yourself a Celtic man, you run yourself ragged. I don't want to see you walking across the halfway line while James Forrest is taking the ball down the flank and is even with the box, and there's only one player in the box. I want to see him running until his foot falls off to get into the end of that ball in the box and put it in the back of the net. He never done it on Tuesday. And yes, you can say if Lennon would have noticed that and pulled him out of the game, then things could have changed. But while you're on the park, you play where the manager tells you to play, and you give it absolutely everything. And he fell well short of it. And for me, it's inexcusable.
Yeah, I mean, and I think why Samaras creates so much ire regarding that kind of issue is because we all know the talent the guy's got, and that's what really infuriates me about him, is that when he's on his game and he's up for it, he's practically unplayable. But there's too many times when that doesn't kind of happen. I generally think regarding Tuesday, I think there's been a problem there for a long time. I think a lot of players think they're better than they actually are.
I agree.
I kind of, when Joe Ledley said, we could have scored 6. Well, we could have done if we'd actually put the ball in the net,
right.
But we never put any in the net, you know what I mean? And to me, this kind of we could have scored 6 attitude is why you lose semi-finals of the League Cup to St Mirren and throw away league titles at Inverness and things like that, as you roll up expecting to win. And Celtic, everybody knows in the Premier League right now and forever in a day, you always have to win the battle first.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see it today. I'm sure it was apparent on the telly as well. We start the game, sort of tippy-tappy stuff and all that kind of thing. And the next thing you're a goal down, and nobody was surprised by that at all. It was so simple. And then, of course, you lose one for a long throw in again, which Terry Butcher mocks us about on the radio, saying, well, we've seen Carragandi do it, so we thought we'd give it a go, and it works.
Yeah.
And
that's especially troubling.
Yeah, because if you look at the goal we conceded in Carragandi, and people are saying, well, if Samaras runs into this area, that area, sorry, he's a centre forward. You've got a 6'7" goalie there, just needs to run out and catch a ball. That's it. That's what he's here for. And that's what was kind of causing the City chagrin towards Foster today, is the second goal was just come out and catch it.
Right.
Similar as well. I mean, I kind of thought at the game, and Butcher said it on the radio after the game, was that they allowed our centre-backs to have the ball today because they know they've got to pass to Aguirre. That seems to be the number one tactic when we're going forward, is to get the ball to Aguirre, who I do like, but Christ almighty, how many balls did he waste today?
Yeah.
If it wasn't under hit, it was sailing above everybody's head and stuff like that. And
in addition, there were several circumstances for me which are unacceptable. Lack of focus. I mean, balls being passed to him, and it's either his first touch or just misplayed, and that's a huge concern. I mean, if you're going to use that as your outlet to take the ball off of the defense and build from the back, you can't build anything if you don't start the build up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually I don't know what you guys think of it, but I'm actually not comfortable with that tactic at all. I mean, I don't understand why we didn't play the game at a much higher tempo.
I agree.
We should be as fit as we'll be, full stop. But now, we've had plenty of pre-season and we've had tons of games and that kind of thing. We should be tearing into teams because what's happening a lot, and I think this happened last season as well, is the way that we play, and the longer we go when we're not winning the game, we kind of go into a rhythm and a pattern that teams find very easy to defend against.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes from the fact that we're still without a guy in midfield who can actually properly create chances. Amido Balde today, I want to speak to the groundsman who left the treacle on the spot he was standing for the entire game. But certainly, if I was the manager, I'd be getting the Portuguese translator in and just telling the guy, you're never going to score a goal if you didn't move. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is that simple.
Well, and I don't think that it's relegated just to him. I think there's loads of players that are absolute statues, not just are strikers are forward players. But, you see it in the midfield, and I think that's really the key of where we're lacking this tempo. If we're going to go up against the side that's going to pack the box, we need to move the ball side to side quickly. We can't allow them time to close us down when we're trying to cross balls in. How many crosses or how many deliveries into the box did we get blocked today? And it's just it's just casual. It's just lackadaisical.
Especially when you consider the 2 goals we actually scored.
Right.
They both came on the deck.
Right.
Guys beating guys, passing the ball, whatever, shooting. And yet, we try that very little, and instead we keep firing cross after cross into the box. That's what Inverness and teams like that spend all week doing in training.
Right. Defending
the types of crosses and all that kind of thing. I mean, Terry Butcher effectively said on the radio that we're very predictable to play against.
Yeah, he knew what was coming. They prepared for it, and it was exactly as he expected.
Yeah, and so that's where you get an issue about Wednesday, in my opinion, where it's like, do we really think this team's got in them to win 3-0 on Wednesday? You would kind of hope that you get players back and there's a much bigger urgency and impetus and stuff like that. But again, when I was talking about the general mood of the fans right now and the ground, different factions and all that kind of thing, when Boructor came on to do the Paradise Windfall draw and they got a big announcement, I don't think anybody clapped at all.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I think, and I'm not saying people were nasty towards him, but people, I think it just reminded them. So where have you been exactly?
Right.
You just come strolling nonchalantly on or that kind of thing, and maybe somebody, because the Paradise Windfall wasn't actually claimed, so maybe somebody was so angry they didn't even want to go and take the money, But it just, you kind of, a conversation I had behind me today was, something along the lines like, see if we get another transfer deadline day like we did last year with Lassad and Miku, and it's like, is that really a year ago already? And, here we are again, still at the same point. He's trying to get 2 or 3 players in, and but then some people say I'm really negative. So
yeah, well, I'm a soup taking anti-Celtic daft yank, but I do like soup. Minestrone is very good when it's cold outside, and my mom makes a mean Italian wedding soup. It's a family recipe from Agrigento, Sicily. Madonna mia. So
there's few occasions that you can claim the moral high ground by being in America, but this week is one, especially where you're located, and especially given the fact that it's the 50th anniversary. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, we've heard many times on many podcasts on the airwaves and stuff, so you can get it right up. I saw on Wednesday.
Correct. Thank you very much, Paul. Paul, tell us about your forthcoming book. How's it coming along? I mean, obviously it's done. It's in the can, so to speak. But a lot of preparation coming for the launch. Tell us about that, and you have a book launch coming up.
Yeah, well, the book itself is sort of 99.9% done. Last week I was kind of all over Europe, sort of speaking to the main source, speaking to lawyers and all that, because this is, I think I maybe seen it here before or somebody else that, the people I write about in the past are now the type of people that are liable to sue you.
Yeah.
They're more liable to sort of like people that might cut your head off, you know what I mean? Right. So this is the thing that I've never really had to deal with in the past, and of course I've come at it from the angle of, how can you sue the truth? To which lawyers reply, there's many ways to do that. All right, cheers, So there was a section. There's a big section in the book that relates to how can I put it, something that's going to happen in the future that required a lot of sort of digging and investigative stuff and blah 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 blah. And the lawyers looked over it and sort of went, there was certain things in here. There's no way on earth you'll get away with saying this. And it was, I kind of had to sort of, have it explained to me a bit, and stuff, because I didn't see what the problem was. It was kind of like, this is what this guy's trying to do. Here's the details about it. Here's the pictures, and here's this, and here's that, and all that sort of thing. And they were just like, well, you can't, because you're basically suggesting that this is like corrupt. And I'm kind of like, well, it is, but So that had to come out, after, by the way, after a lot of arguing and shouting and, and all that kind of thing. And by the way, I should just say, never get in an argument with a lawyer.
Outmatched.
Yeah, they have this really, really annoying habit of being both shouty and really intelligent.
Dangerous combination.
It's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if you get. I don't think you'll get remember. There's a program in Britain called QI with Stephen Fry, and you watch it, and all these facts, and think, is that really true? It makes you feel stupid. That's kind of like what arguing with a lawyer's like. So that, and then the source had a few panic attacks, I have to say. It's never a good idea when you go over to a source and you're kind of like just going, just to confirm everything's went well. And the first thing he says is, I've had a few sleepless nights over this. Oh, for Christ's sake, And so you kind of, back and forth about, but, I'm not sure this is relevant, that's relevant. And you're like, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to, this is personal and that. How do you realise what happens? And like, just go with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, done all that last week, and it was really, it was a kind of bittersweet because I, went some great places and, done some good things and stuff like that. But it was an incredibly stressful time because I've never had to answer for anything in a book before it even came out, and it was a bit like, it felt a bit, because you get so involved with a book that it felt a bit like somebody coming into your house and kind of saying, this is wrong and that's wrong and this is wrong, and what you do, and you just kind of like, you feel like saying, shut up, but you know that it's going to go out there and people are going to read it and you've got to cover it and stuff. And I'm kind of saying to the source of that, listen, it's my name on the book,
right. Right.
It's just not yours, so I'll be the one that cops all the flack and that. So, but it's kind of personal to me to get the story out there.
Right.
So then that stuff then went to the editor, and it's kind of went back and forth because something really weird happened, which was a line appeared in the book that nobody could explain where it had come from, and it didn't make any sense whatsoever, and it just kind of sat alone on a page underneath a piece, and it was just like, how is it? And so he checked the thing, and it just it appeared in the first printed copy, and it wasn't on the kind of PDF or anything like that. So that had to get changed, and then realised that there's graphs in it which have related information to Celtic and Rangers, and there was a mistake on the left hand side of it, which made the stuff look like thousands instead of millions. So they had to get changed and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. So at this point now, it's just a case of waiting on that just tweaked way, and then hopefully that'll be it done. In that respect, it's that's a kind of end of a long journey type thing, because when I seen the first printed copy, I was absolutely over the moon with it. The cover is perfect, which was done by our good friend Josh Gaffney, or John Jeffrey, or whatever he's calling himself this week.
I call him Trader.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got a bit of feeling that. I noticed. Know that I'm a kind of nasty person like that, but it was quite funny to see that you couldn't get anybody this week to do Paradise Preview. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, you got the Rev last week, Trader.
Oh, yeah, that was terrible, I have to say. That was probably a low point in Hill Media history. It was like, I don't know, it was like Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. That kind of vibe. But anyway, so I was delighted because I think that the cover really gives it a great impact. So that's that done. And then what I've just been able to sign off on yesterday is we're going to do an audiobook version of it as well, which will hopefully be exactly the same time on iTunes and stuff like that. And, that's something to, well, it's not something to look forward to because it's an incredibly hard thing to do, but you know what I mean. It really is. It's
something for us to look forward to, but for you, it's absolute murder.
Well, I'm going to. I'm hopefully going to get somebody else to read parts of it, because I think that would, because you're going to go, you're going to go on a trip through stuff that I've done, experienced in my life that have related to certain things, and then we'll go into the meat of the whole point of the book. And I think that bit should be read by somebody else who's probably got less guttural twang than I have, shall we say.
Maybe you should get the gaffer.
No.
Aye.
Well, he could do the extras part. Him and Rev having a face-off. But so that's going to happen, and I've got the time to do that kind of thing, and that'll be available on iTunes and Audible, whatever it's called, and all that kind of stuff. Because that's something I really want to do, and we almost had it done for Father of Love and got let down badly by somebody who's reading a chapter and decided to just disappear, which was really helpful. But anyway, so that was that, and there is a launch on November the 2nd. There will be a general sale of tickets for that this week, hopefully. It's almost sold out because it went to the book group that's run by Kim Petrie first, because they've been, really, really supportive, and they basically bought up all the tickets, so there should just be a couple of free tickets available for that. So people are interested, they'll need to get in touch pretty quickly. And from that, it's a case of hoping that I just manage to stay alive until then.
America is a very big place, and if you want to include Canada and make it North America and throw Mexico in there, that's a huge place. So you have options.
Well, I'll take you back to a quote that you made on Twitter about 3 weeks ago, Graham, because I was thinking about this. How do you sort of hide in plain sight? Whitey Bulger got away with it for 16 years. That's not bad. It's not a bad run, hiding in plain sight. And I just thought, where would there be another daft baldy prick? So I've got a seat ticket for Red Bulls, and that's what I intend to be next year.
Exactly. Holding up a bit of pyro, climbing up the side of like some chicken wire, no shirt on.
Well, because I've actually, this whole kind of This Is England look that seems to be gone round New Jersey, Harrison, New Jersey these days. I'm kind of in it because that's obviously a film, and it's a TV show and that as well here now, eh? This Is England 86, This Is England 88, so I think the Rev and Co are starting that kind of theme. But actually, I was thinking about the Rev and yourself because I was listening. I don't know if you heard the Saturday, the Radio 5 World Football Opponent this week.
Yes. I didn't listen to this one, but
it's actually from Washington DC this week.
Really?
Because of the Martin Luther King celebration.
Yeah. So everybody was in Washington DC except for Vickery is in Brazil, is he not?
No, Vickery was in London.
Okay.
The Nigerian guys in Washington DC and the MLS guys were there, and there was a brilliant. I would urge anybody to download it because it's a brilliant discussion on racism in American sport. And it was fantastic. There was one guy in particular, American guy, who was absolutely fantastic.
Well, and the interesting connection, obviously, again, it's appropriate that they're in Washington, D.C., talking about the Washington Redskins, who, were one of the last NFL teams to sign a black player. Their owner, at the time was, let's say, not so discreet about his feelings with race relations. I'll leave it at that. But, very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because this guy was saying that he'd been talking to another American pundit, and I kind of relate to him what sport we're talking about. But the guy was kind of, we have to go to Poland and Macedonia, and they're all racist there, and all this kind of thing. And the guy was kind of like, listen, it was only about the 80s that we finally got our act together,
Right.
So, and he's kind of talking about, obviously, people remember Jackie Robinson, and of course the documentary 42 came out, but it was only like 1975, you had the first black manager in baseball. 1975, so it's an incredible turnaround in people. It's not about like Obama that. It's more about things like the fact that probably the most popular sportsman in America the last 30 years is Michael Jordan,
right?
Who's obviously a black guy and stuff like that. And so, he was. I was pleased because I know when I was listening, I know it would have enraged you if he had just came on there and said, "Yeah, we're all racist," or "No, we didn't have a problem whatsoever."
Right.
He actually went in the balanced middle of that, which was really, really good. And, I think that if you look at kind of, like, to tie it into Scotland, I think that sometimes we kind of forget, it is that kind of balance where we can never forget what this country's been like, but the progression has been incredible as well. I mean, I was driven back through Brickton tonight, and there was Celtic tops all over the shop. walking past some of the most, uncessed pubs in Glasgow, and nothing happened. Now, I can tell you, 15 years ago, that had been a riot.
Right.
People were getting killed in the areas. Literally, people were getting killed. That's where the young boy Mark Scott was slashed to death.
Yeah.
That ended up in the Null by Mouth campaign and stuff. So, I think it was interesting. See, I'm kind of, I'm not drinking and I've got a few health issues and stuff like that. So, I'm basically looking for anything and everything today and rant about. So that's why I'm kind of ranting all the time right now. And I know that you're somebody that can't stand ranting.
No, I despise it, and but I'm glad that you came on and shared your rant with us and the information and your experience and wisdom. We always love hearing from you. And we're also looking forward to the book coming out, as you mentioned. This fall, another book launch, another notch in the belt, shall we say? And this one, just your description of what you're revealing, to a certain extent. I'm really looking forward to this, and this is in a different stratosphere, in my opinion. So, looking forward to more than that. Looking forward to seeing the response, that comes about. So
yeah, well, I tell you one thing. I was discussing this last week. It's the first time I ever thought of it. I mean, there's a lot of strange things happened in the last few weeks to me that I think is related to the book. I got a letter through referring me, saying I was being referred to a mental institution, which I thought, I can't remember that. And then I was apparently referred to there by my brother, who obviously doesn't exist. So that was weird. Had a few strange phone calls and stuff like that. I also had someone text me a number claiming to be somebody else and saying that that's who they were, and they'd changed their number and it wasn't their name. And this all kind of happened in the last 2 weeks, and so who knows what might happen between now and then. As I say, between my health issues and my safety issues and my threats on Twitter, I might not be here. If I'm not, I'll give you I'll leave the book to you in my will, Graham, and you can go out there and take the flak, because I know you can take that on your shoulders because I'm broad.
Right. Yeah, I don't worry. I will funnel the money into the account that we described, and
the slush fund in the Bahamas.
Right, exactly. Make sure that you can get it when you go off the grid, so to speak.
Yeah, because I'm mega rich.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, listen, it's not cheap, the upkeep on your mansion, I can imagine. So,
yeah. It's I'm currently in my penthouse,
Right.
So, but it's certainly not cheap. But no, it's just been good talking to you, and as usual, kind of get a word in anyway for the rev. But
well, listen. He goes to Red Bull Arena. He drinks all the damn Red Bull, and then he can't shut the hell up. Half the time, he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
And he also goes to Cleveland.
Oh, that's true.
Don't hate on Cleveland there.
I don't. I've been there. I love it. I actually had a strange experience in Cleveland. 2 minutes. I went to Rock. I went there. I stopped there on the way to go to Chicago. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was tremendous. But I was actually there. Do you ever remember when the Yankees played Cleveland and the series when Jabba went nuts with all the
bugs? Yeah.
That series, I was actually in Cleveland when Cleveland were in New York playing the Yankees, and there was literally not a person on the streets. The whole city was just on lockdown.
Yeah.
Because everybody was watching the game and stuff like that. And Cleveland actually progressed, because obviously it was the Yankees that played, so they lost. But although I have to say, I am looking forward to A-Rod, winning the Yankees the series this year and sticking 2 fingers up to everybody. I think that's going to be hilarious.
Who, bitch tits?
Bitch tits.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow. That's
just look. I'll give you another game. Just apart from that Boxing World Series you won in 2008, has Philly actually ever won anything ever in history, sport-wise?
We said this 2 weeks ago, going back to what, like 1981, 1980?
Both of you guys can go to hell.
I think Seamus's kids team won a game once, I think, or something.
That's something.
So let's get up the rocky steps and celebrate that.
Paul Arkin, thank you so much for joining us today. Green and White writer, eloquent as always. We always appreciate him joining us, and keep an eye out for his forthcoming book. Rev, thank you so much for joining us from Chopper 67 along the Garden State Parkway, and all eyes towards Wednesday, and hopefully we can get the result that we need and progress. So, with that being said, taking us out as always is Shane McGowan and the Pogues. Thanks again to all the callers, and genuinely thank you, Paul Larkin, the Rev, and everybody. I'm Graham Wilson. Hail, and keep the faith.
Bye, Peter.
The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. And a torch lights up a famished man who fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroads? Did you ride the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs start to cheer you? And did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years? Or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know that it was not to be on a coffin ship. I came here and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to a land of opportunity that some of them will never see. Fortune prevailing across the western ocean, their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the dead of afternoon, we stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first man on the moon. And a blackbird broke the silence as you whistled, it's so sweet. And in Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. And we said goodnight to Broadway, giving it our best regards. Took our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favorite bird. Then we raised a glass to JFK and a dozen more beside.